I'm not looking at social media until 10 o'clock. I'm already up by 8. Mm-hmm. I am not gonna, and there's days where I fall off, but for the most part, like, I'm not looking on Instagram or anything until 10 o'clock. My phone's still on Do Not Disturb, so I'm not waking up to everyone's fucking problems right away. I want to start my day with just, Nico, what's my problem right now? Okay, I need to take a shit. So I'm going to take a fucking shit in peace, dude. Yeah. I'm going to shower in peace. I got to walk my dog. I have my own, like, things that I need to worry about in my household before I get to everyone else's problems who, like, may or may not need my assistance.
Welcome to Guys That Listen. I'm Peter, and today we got special guest Nico on the pod.
What's up, man? What's poppin'? What's good? My name is Nico Blitz, y'all. DJ, producer, based out of LA, from the Bay Area, from San Francisco to be exact. A boyfriend, a son, a cousin, a grandson, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And an uncle.
And an uncle.
Yes, and an uncle.
How many siblings do you have?
I just have one sister. She's younger, so I just turned 31 this past March. It's April now, 2024. And she is 26.
Oh, wow.
26, 27.
Like a 5 year.
4 or 5 year. Yeah, I'm 93. She's 98. So yeah, it's a 5-year gap. And she has 2 kids.
Oh, wow, 2 kids.
She has 2 kids. So, top of 2020, right? She was already expecting my niece, her daughter, Bria. So right February 2020, bro, like right before the pandemic started, like she had given birth to my niece, Bria. I want to say a year later was the birth of my nephew, and his name is Chance. And my sister was just like, yeah, I wanted to knock it out. I wanted to make sure that they kind of had like roughly the same age so they could like grow up together. Because, me and my sister, we weren't necessarily the closest growing up. Whether it be like we had our differences in like opinions, like we'd really fight all the freaking time.
Oh, really?
And so now me and her relationship is a lot better. Like, we're super cordial. We could talk together. We can have a good time together, talk shit, talk basketball, whatever. And honestly, like, her kids were kind of like that anchor to really like build us together, right? And so I'm hella speeding up like everything I'm about to say, but like when I first moved from the Bay Area to LA, this was back in 2014, right? And still back then, like, me and my sister didn't necessarily have, like, the best relationship. Like, she really thought I'd be, like, snitching on her. She thought that I'd be like, yeah, Mom, like, she has her weed in, like, a fucking shoebox. And I'd be like, dude, that's not me. Because I could care less what you do. Yeah. Truthfully, I really, like, could care less at that time, right? Not because, like, I wasn't like looking for the well-being of her like physical health, but because like, if my sister has weed, like I'm not really tripping. That's on you. I don't care. I had weed too, but I hit it better, right? I just hit it better.
Oh, so she got caught. That's why
she would get caught so many times, and she would think I would snitch on her to my mom. And so I leave, right? I finally leave in 2014. I'm going to college in Cal State, LA. And then guess what? She still gets caught. And so now she's in a situation where it was like, oh, I guess my brother, my kuya, I'm Filipino. She's like, I guess my kuya wasn't really snitching on me. So our relationship started to like really form after I left.
That's a weird way for it to form. Over the fact that she could trust you, that you're not snitching on her over her weed.
It was a little bit like that, because like I said, man, like we used to fight so much when we were kids, man. Like it would be fights over like how to train our dog Toby at the time, right? It would be fights about like when our parents would go out of town, and if my sister wanted to like throw a party without like, our parents knowing. Like here's one really cool story, right? Like my parents went out of town. I forgot for how long, maybe just like a weekend, right? We'll just say that. And my sister was like, hey, Kuya, I'm going to throw a party at the house. I'm just going to invite a couple people. Cool, whatever. I want to have nothing to do with this shit, so I'm going to go ahead and just like, stick in the room or hang out with my friends, whatever. So before I even like left, I believe I had just like knocked out and I had woken up to like a loud ruckus. So I go upstairs and bro, there was hella people in this freaking house. Like My sister said a couple. There was hella fucking people, bro. Like, it felt like 50 people at the time.
How big is this place?
So it's a 2-story, and then there's like a level underneath the ground type of thing. So I guess it's technically 3. So the house had what felt like 50 people, and I remember someone had like shaken up like a bottle of champagne, and then it exploded, and then the cork hit the ceiling, right? Without nobody knowing, right? By the time my parents come back home, my sister and her friends had cleaned up the house as if it was like nothing happened, right? Again, I had nothing to do with this. And so my parents were looking around, and then they look at the ceiling, and they see the cork. You know, they see the cork marking on the top of the ceiling. And I was like, see, I have nothing to do with this shit right here. Like, I don't be saying anything. But, you know, at that point, that was just something to really laugh about. Like, you know, I obviously had like very good moments with my sister. Like, you know, we both used to play basketball. Like, I used to play JV at my school. She was varsity at her school. So we connected on basketball. And honestly, like, it was to the point where like our relationship was just so like wishy-washy to where like people didn't even realize we were siblings. So like I have a very different last name.
Oh, really?
So it's Triunfante.
Okay.
Which is not common at all. And as far as I know, it's literally only people in my family who have this last name, right? Like literally cousins in Australia, cousins in the Philippines, cousins in Canada. It's extremely limited, bro. I don't know anybody else with this last name, right?
You're the only one that I know with this last name.
Exactly. And so I remember one time, one of my best friends from back home, his name is Aaron, and it was our senior prom. And my sister was in high school at the time. And I remember my sister coming up to me, and she was just like, hey, Kuya, like, your friend Aaron just asked me out to prom. I was like, does he not know you're my sister? And she's like, I don't know. So I go up to my boy Aaron the next day. I was like, hey, bro, like, did you know that you asked my sister to prom? He was like, who's your sister? I'm like, Sabrina. He's like, oh, bro, I'm so sorry. I didn't even realize that was your sister. I'm like, did you look at her last name, bro? Because I promise you nobody else has the same last name, dog. And he was like, oh, bro, like, my fault. I didn't even check. I'm like, bro, you are tripping.
And then what happened?
They didn't even go to prom. I was like, bro, you're going to cut this shit right. You're going to cut this shit right now. None of this is happening. He's like, all right, bro, my fault. I'm like, yeah.
At least he respected it. Because I know some guys who don't. You know, I have a sister myself.
Okay.
We're 7 years age gap.
Yeah.
Younger sister also. And I don't have your problem. I have a younger brother too. I don't know if you know him, Dante.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually
The singer at Arena.
Yeah, exactly.
The MC.
The MC. Yep. We actually have the opposite problem with you. Like, everyone thinks we're twins.
Yeah. Okay. I see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it for sure.
I'll literally go to the gym with them, and the front desk person will be like, are you guys twins? And I'm like, damn, we are not even the same height. That was crazy that you would even say that.
Yeah.
But as far as the sister thing, I've had friends. Well, one of my really good friends now, Matt, he actually dated her before I even met him.
Yeah.
So they're boyfriend and girlfriend, then they met, and then now we're friends. But ever since then, I've had friends who would approach my sister. And I'm like, you know, that's my sister.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that I'm against my friends dating my sister, but you're just not good enough to date her. You know what I mean? I'm not against it.
No, for real.
Just be on that level.
Because you really be knowing how your friends act. So it's like,
exactly.
nah, bro. Like, I don't want none of that with my sister.
Exactly. Don't fuck around. Like, I know how you really are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't fucking act like you're all fucking giddy. Like,
Yeah.
let's be real. You know?
Yeah.
So we have a little difference in that. But that's cool that your friend backed up a little
Yeah.
bit.
You know, I was in a very similar situation before. I'm in a very similar situation now for like 2 different reasons, right? So I remember back then, like I said, like me and my sister used to play basketball, right? And so I actually used to date one of her friends who was on her team. She was older than my sister, so it wasn't like I'm dating someone who's like on the same age as my sister. So she was a little bit older. And, you know, looking back at it, like, it's kind of awkward, right? Especially like when you're in high school and then you're trying to, you know, make a name for yourself outside of like who your sibling is too. So that was like the weird thing that I came to realize, like, in retrospect, like, okay, that really wasn't cool of me, right? So that was one thing. The second thing, right, actually right now, is that, so my sister, she has a daughter and a son, Chance and Bria. My homie is actually going to be my brother-in-law very soon.
Oh.
Yeah, so get this, right? So I meet this guy. So I have my like really hardcore group of friends back home, right? And because I moved back to the Bay, like obviously there's more people who just like enter the friend group, right? One of these cats, his name is Jason, he enters the friend group. So every time I would go back home, and he's a little bit closer to my age, right? So he's a little bit older than my sister. So we would hang out, and I'm just like, oh, I like this guy. He's not like my hardcore group of friends where I know like all their deep dark secrets, and I'm just like, I would never let you guys date my sister. But Jason, I'm just like, oh, like this guy's actually hella cool. He's like super respectful. Like I really fuck with him. And like it would be nice where we'd like, go out to drinks and like hang out, and it was all chill. It was cool, right? So my sister, she ends up coming over to LA just out of the blue one day, and she's like, hey, I'm actually coming down with like a couple of friends. I'm like, all right, cool. Like just let me know when you're coming here, and I'll just make sure I have some time for you. She was rolling with like one of my friends at the time, and then we're all meeting together and whatnot. I don't see this last friend, aka her boyfriend. And so my friend was just like, hey, like, so what do you think about Sabrina dating Jason?
Oh.
And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, oh, you don't know your sister is like Jason's girlfriend? I said, what the fuck? I was like, oh, well, I mean, that's cool. Like, Jason's a cool guy. So then Jason walks in, and I dab him up. I'm like, oh, what's up, Jay? You good? You good? He's like, yeah, bro, I'm good. Sabrina walks in, and she's like, oh, this is awkward. She was like, Kuya, meet my boyfriend, Jason. I was like, this is my dog. This is your boyfriend? Like, yeah, like, this is dope, bro. Like, this is cool. Like, I fuck with Jason, like, legitimately. So Sabrina, she just had like a big ass monkey just jump off her back because she already knew like, oh, okay, cool. This is my brother's friend, and he's already like super cool with it. Like, so at that point, it was just good vibes afterward.
Now they have 2 kids together.
Now they have 2 kids. I remember the moment when my sister like got pregnant for the first time, right? I was gonna DJ at a restaurant, and I was high as shit, bro. I was high as fuck. I had ate like an edible or 2. I was gone.
Oh, fuck.
Right?
How did you DJ after that?
It was chill. It was just regular, like, oh, I'm just going to mix this song for like a couple hours. I was chilling, right? And so my sister calls me. She's like, hey, Kuya, like, do you have a minute? Like, I have something like very important to tell you. And I could hear it in her voice. I was like, oh, she's tripping right now, right? So she calls me, and she's like, hey, like, I just want to let you know, like, I'm pregnant. And literally like the complete opposite of how she thought I was going to react, right? I was like, oh my God, congrats. It's with Jason, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, dude, that's fucking dope. Like, congratulations. Like, did you tell mom and dad? She was like, first of all, thank God, because I thought you were going to be like tripping right now because, I'm younger than you, da-da-da. Like, all the social norms that are just put on us right now, she thought I'd be tripping. I'm like, no, like, Jason's a good guy. I really like him, and you've been with him for a while now, so I'm cool with it. So she had the next complication was like, how do I tell my parents type thing?
Yeah.
Which I was like, look, you got to present it with like, you have all your shit straight. At least you're going to school right now. Jason's like working on his shit right now. And it's like, you guys have like a mutual thing that you guys are going to do this together, correct? She's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, cool. As long as you guys present that, I think you guys are going to be good. And like now, fast forward, my parents couldn't be happier that they're grandparents. I couldn't be happier that, I'm an uncle to my niece and my nephew. I get to see them like every so often. And, during the pandemic, I had a really good opportunity to get close with my niece because I was back home in the Bay for a bit. And so we have a really good relationship right now. Not to say that I don't have a good relationship with my nephew, but, me and Bria just have like a different bond because like I was literally there every single day watching her grow up.
Yeah, man, that's tough. As far as your nephew goes, because I kind of know how you feel about that. I have two half brothers. Mm-hmm. They're both 18 years younger than me.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
you got like a Mexican family damn near.
Basically.
Where like the age gap is so different between you and your cousin.
Stark, man, stark. Yeah. So both my parents divorced, and they both got remarried, and both had kids around the same time.
Oh wow!
I think it was in spite, to be honest, right? Oh yeah, you think I'm gonna be alone? Hell no. You know, you think you get married? You think you're gonna get pregnant? I'll get pregnant.
Just the next person trying to one up each other, basically. Yeah,
exactly. So one of them I stayed with for the longest time, and the other half brother on my mom's side, I actually didn't grow up with him. Mm-hmm. So we have a very long distance relationship, and I always feel this weird guilt, like I'm not a good brother. I'm not even gonna blame it on the distance because I don't think I'm that great of a brother, even if it wasn't about distance.
Yeah.
You know, I think I could definitely have done better, but it was just kind of the household I grew up in. We weren't really family orientated, and I'm the oldest sibling, right? And I was always the black sheep. I was always gone.
Yeah.
And that's because I saw more of the things that went down in the household. So it's funny, I actually thought about this today, and it kind of gives me a reason to bring it up. But my parents, are your parents together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my parents were divorced. It was a very toxic household growing up. A lot of yelling, a lot of breaking shit, you know?
Yeah.
And the reason why I left because I was the oldest one, and I would see it, and I was like, dude, I don't want to be a part of this shit.
Yeah.
So I would just dip, right? So that was the reason why I started going out. Because it was a means of me getting away from the household.
I hear you.
Yeah. So, you know, family events would happen. You know, I'm the one that was the most aware of it because I would see these things happen, and they would also get me the most involved. My parents would be like, hey, like, tell your mom this. Like, my dad would be like, tell your mom this.
Oh, it's on that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, some manipulative shit, like lie to each other kind of thing through their kid. And yeah, it just made me feel like home was never home. And
well, at that point, like you're taking the responsibility not as like a, and you know, I'm trying to not dish your parents at all, but like just based off how I see it is kind of like, they took away the responsibility of you being a son and more of you just being a scapegoat at that point.
Yeah, like a medium in between them.
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
This is just, I guess I have more of something to say is, and if you have a family, meaning if your parents, and you're arguing, please try to not do it in front of the kids. That's what I would think of it, because to me that household, it was home when I was younger because it was a safe space.
Yeah.
And I think what it transformed into was not that.
Yeah.
Right. It was some place that I did not look forward to being at night. You know, I couldn't sleep comfortably. And yeah, if there's one piece of advice I would say to parents, it's like, yeah, keep that, like, especially the place being your home, like keep the arguments away from your home, and if not, away from the kids in general.
Yeah, you know, for the most part, my parents have they've been able to keep like all their arguments like kind of under wraps, right?
That's awesome.
Amongst themselves, right? So anything that they were fighting about, big, small, whatever, like for the most part, I don't really know about it, right? Whereas like my family is a pretty loud family. And so whenever it came down to like issues amongst family members, so my mom is a single child. My dad is like one of 8. One of 7 or one of 8, right? I lose track. But like whenever they have arguments, bro, like everyone knows what the hell is going on because they are just loud in general. And then by the time it gets like something that they like are very passionate about, like they just let like the shitstorm just like flare out. And so, you know, what's funny is that, like, I kind of have so I don't think my situation is as intense as yours. Mm-hmm. Therefore, my answer is going to be a little bit different when it comes to, like, you know, arguments in, like, front of everybody, right? And I feel like, you know, everyone's situations are just a lot different, right? So when my dad would argue with, like, his siblings, my cousins, like, you know, my cousins' like parents, my aunties, my uncles, like me and my cousins kind of like bond over that.
Oh.
It's kind of like this odd thing because like we have a very shifty family to where it's like we're so passionate to where like just because we're expressing loudly doesn't necessarily mean we're like screaming at you.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, like we're coming at you with like all this anger. It's just that we express ourselves very loudly. And on the flip side too, because we express ourselves loudly, that gets applied to like everything else. So when we laugh and when something is like so traumatic, I guess we just end up like laughing about it, truthfully. So like me and my cousins, like we'll always have like these inside jokes whenever like there's some like shit going on and we're just laughing about that shit. Like, bro, did you see like the way like your dad turned up on my mom? And I was like, yeah, dude, that shit was fucking hilarious, bro. Like, you know what I mean? And there's video footage of all this shit. So we kind of just like go through like the timeline and just like rewatch these videos because at the end of the day, like it's not like they're fist fighting each other or anything. They're just all fucking loud and they're just trying to like get their point across.
Yeah. I can see that working as far as it being like siblings or uncles and aunties. Like I can see that. I grew up with just mainly an immediate family. Like you met my cousin Vin. He didn't come here until, how old were you when you came here? 9 years old. So he's 25. I'm 36. So we got like an 11-year age gap.
Hell yeah.
So even then, it wasn't like I was gonna talk to him about those situations that happened. So I didn't really have that. I only had my immediate family, and the only people that I had to talk about it with was younger siblings. You know, so it was a little different as far as communication styles. Like I couldn't really bond with my siblings over it, and I think as an older brother, you know how I mentioned I felt like I wasn't the best older brother.
Yeah.
When I had left home multiple times, I did feel, now in hindsight, I in one way or another abandoned them. You know what I mean? I wasn't there to like protect them from my parents raging, things getting destroyed, seeing like just a toxic environment, you know? And, you know, I don't blame myself because, you know, it had been going on for 8 years at that point. When I had really started leaving home was around 13 to 16. I just didn't know what else to do. You know, I wasn't big enough to really restrain my parents. And I wasn't emotionally aware enough to speak to them in a way where they would understand, like hey, let's be rational about this.
Yeah.
Let's cool down. Because very similarly, they argued by yelling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was, I think the difference is that they only yell when they argue. Meaning, if they talk passionately about something, they're not gonna yell.
Yeah.
So it was hard to discern from that. And you know what's crazy is that I found myself taking certain habits of that into my own relationships moving forward. And did you end up getting into relationships where you're just loud in general too? Like even when you're arguing?
There are, I'll say this too, like there are definitely moments where like I have seen myself, you know how I said like, you know, my family could really just express themselves loudly. I've seen myself kind of go like Super Saiyan 2 version of that, where it's like I shouldn't have been like that loud, or I shouldn't have been like, you know, like that pissed off, and maybe I could have like rearranged my attitude or like controlled my emotions a lot more. But like truthfully, I'm a very calm person. And so like when I am pushed to those limits, I wouldn't say it's for a good reason, but it is for a reason. And I've had to check myself during those times to where I'm just like, okay, like if I'm feeling this way, like why did I feel this way? Like, was it something because of that someone else did, or is it something that like I could have controlled on myself? And, you know, 50-50. It's a little bit of what the other person did, and it's a little bit of like what I can also do for myself. And, you know, we're all just constantly getting older. So I've come to realize like it doesn't matter what the other person does. The other person could do like this, that, and the third just to piss you off. But like the only thing that you can really do is control how you react to certain things. So, you know, even being in a relationship with my girlfriend, Jackie, I've had to adjust myself in so many different ways. And I know this is kind of like the topic to where like, how much of yourself do you change because of the person that you're with? But I'm going to say this. What I'm about to say doesn't have to do with like me changing myself for the bad. It's me changing myself for the better, right? So like I'm very open when it comes to communication, and I'm very passionate, and I could talk about like anything for days as long as I love the subject, right? But when it came to expressing myself loudly, like Jackie didn't really like that. And I'm just telling her like, yo, like I just express myself very loudly. She's like, okay, I get that, but maybe you could just turn it down a couple decibels. And I'm like, okay, cool. And why does she feel that way, right? Maybe because she didn't necessarily get like as loudly yelling like in the household, so she's used to like, and you know, she comes from a Mexican household too, so like a lot of the backlash for her would come in like silent kills. So it's like, oh, well, if you don't do this, all right, cool. I'm going to just fucking make sure like you're living in fucking hell right now without me even like saying anything. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, I don't know if that's worse, right?
Yeah.
Right? Whereas for me, like, you know, it'd be like fucking yelling. Like, they'd fucking tell you off like, hey, like, you don't fucking do this shit, right? And so I've had to adjust myself in my ways to where like, okay, I know this relationship is going to be like the end all say all. So let me make adjustments, not because somebody is telling me to, but because I know this is also going to make me a better person in turn. Someone can tell you like how to change yourself and whatnot, and it's really up to you if you want to do that. But if you don't look at yourself and understand like, okay, maybe this is an issue that I've been dealing with and I just haven't had the right person tell me like, hey, like you need to learn how to like control this, you know? The way I imagine it, it's like you watch Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
This is why I brought up the whole Super Saiyan shit. If like Goku became the fucking big gorilla every single time, he'd just fucking destroy everything, right?
Yeah.
But when Goku's able to like control everything, guess what? He's Super Saiyan 4, which is a much better version of the fucking big gorilla because you could actually control that strength. You can control that power and you can actually use it in a better way.
I agree with that. You know how you mentioned you get louder, Super Saiyan. Is it ever derived from anger, or is it just you just being highly passionate?
You know, I've actually had that question a lot in my head. And to be honest, like, I really don't know the answer to that yet. I would want to say it's coming from a lot more passion. Just because, you know, generally, like, if anybody's ever come across me, like, I'm not an angry person. Could I say that I do have my angry moments? 1,000%. Maybe you could also say that's a little bit passive aggressive. And so, well, shoot, I guess if I were to give like a definitive answer right now, April 2024, like it does come from a lot more passion because I'm the type of person where like I care so much, right? To the point to where I care so much that it hurts type of shit, right? And I've even had to control that. Like I was the type of person to where like in high school, like I would help everybody out with all their fucking relationship issues and whatnot, right? I know everybody has had that fucking person, right? You've probably had, if you weren't that person, you've definitely had that person in your life, right? But that's because I fucking cared. But it would get to a point to where like I'd understand like, okay, the more I pour my energy into this, the more maybe I'm not getting out of it because I would think that that gets reciprocated. And, you know, I think when you do that so much to a point, you could get angry and you could get frustrated. You start to lose that passion and that passion begins to transform into anger and frustration. And, you know, for those moments where I have definitely let it bleed into anger and frustration, that's just a sliver compared to like all the other passionate moments I have.
Do you feel like you do that with your relationship now?
You know what? No. I will say one instance happened, but I definitely don't want to get into that.
Yeah, no worries.
But, you know, like, even at that point, I had to check myself, too. I'm just like, yo, like, I can't be turning up like that. Like, that's, you know, that's really not me, and that's very out of character. And, you know, I could make the excuse of, like, maybe I was drunk. Maybe, you know, I was just having a bad day or whatever. And so, you know, I'm actually glad that we got into this without me like really talking about the situation. But like, and I actually haven't even told Jackie this, but it was at that moment where I actually like really turned up. In retrospect, now I think about it, is why like I really stopped drinking. So I don't know if you know, but top of January, you know, we just got super drunk. Like, you know, Jackie's family's Mexican, my family's Filipino. So whether we're back in the Bay or whether we're over here with her family, we drink so much, bro. And obviously being a DJ, whether it be like at a club or whatnot, like you're literally handed fucking drinks. And you know what I mean? This is water right here, and this is coffee right here, and this is the only drink I need. The occasional soda. The occasional soda, right? And so I noticed, and also being like in your 30s too, bro, like I don't think we talk about this enough to where like, you know, like the male body parts just don't fucking work when you just drink so much, bro. And I'm just like, oh, this is an actual thing.
Yeah.
Like I can't just drink water every day and then drink alcohol every day and think all my shit is gonna be good. Like for real. Like it was really getting to me, bro. Like, and it was a mental thing. I was like, fuck, dude, like, am I fucking dying? Like this shit is not working no more. This shit is crazy, bro. And so like top of the year, like me and Jackie made a decision, like, hey, like we're just gonna do a dry January. January bled out, then it was dry February. It was my birthday in March. I did not drink at all in March, bro. Wow. It's already April. I'm not drinking. Jackie's going to go to my sister's bachelorette, like, literally next week. So she's probably going to drink, which is cool. It's fine. I'm not, like, an advocate of, like, oh, no, fuck you if you're drinking, whatever. Like, you know, it's casual. But at least for me, like, ever since I stopped drinking, like, a lot of things have just been a lot more clearer, right? Like, I was already calm before. I'm a lot more calm now. Like, there would be days where, like, I'd have to wake up and then just, like, get to the next thing. But, like, I couldn't do that because I'd need, like, a full day of, like, recovery from alcohol, which is, like, a real thing. It doesn't leave your body for 3 freaking days, right? So my energy is up. I'm actually able to wake up at, like, 8 o'clock and just get my day started to do everything that I need to do all the way through, like, 8 o'clock at night. Like, and I'm good to go. I'm good to go the next day. I'm like a fucking well-oiled machine just off of fucking water and coffee. Like, I'm good. But also, too, like, and not to say that I'd be turning up a lot because, like, you know, I really wouldn't. And by, you know, turning up, I meant, like, you know, like, being fucking mad. Like, that really wouldn't happen. But, like, when I look back at it now, and especially during this conversation, like, for those times where I did turn up and, like, you know, whether it be in my current relationship or, like, you know, previous or whatever, like I was drunk. I was really drunk. So like, and that's the only correlating factor other than like whatever the other person did, like pissed me off, right? And so, you know, it's a little bit of like, it's a lot of bit of like taking responsibility of yourself and understanding like, okay, where can I improve? If I'm already a calm person, I think it's just alcohol. Okay, well, where can she improve? Where can the other person improve? Okay, cool. Like, they already have that handled. It's all good to go. And honestly, like, you know, ever since, like, we stopped drinking, like, me and Jackie don't even get in fights anymore. Like, knock on fucking wood. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't get in fights. Like, none of that. And honestly, I think that we're in a lot better of a mental and physical space because we stopped drinking.
Prior to this dry, stint now, right, not just January, did you guys ever thought about it as a problem in your relationship prior?
No.
Oh, wow.
No, because, you know, I made it cut clear when Jackie and I first started dating, right? Because she and I were both working at Real 92.3 at the time. She was on promotions team. I was already on air doing my thing as a DJ. And I told her, I was like, hey, DJing is my career. This is what I do every day. This is how I make a living. This is what I love. That is going to come with DJ-like things. Now, I'm not a fuckboy, right? That's no offense to anybody listening to the podcast, but I'm not a fucking fuckboy. Like, I'm not gonna be with my girl and do some slimy, grimy shit with like some other chicks at the club. Like, that's really not me, right? And so, you know, I basically told her, like, a lot of this shit comes with the territory. I'm going to be out late. There's going to be girls around me. There's going to be alcohol involved at all fucking times. There's going to be people that you might like. There's going to be people that you might not like. But that just comes with this. And if you're okay with that, we can continue with this relationship. All right, cool. And just like all relationships, especially in the beginning, it's like, yeah, like that's fine. Like, we ain't dealing with no problems right now. But honestly, like, we've dealt with a lot of problems in the past, especially when I was like, you know, working for a club. And you know, that just came with the territory too. And honestly, at that point, I was thinking to myself, like, man, you know, like, I'm the one who's right because I told her, like, in the beginning, like, this came with the territory. Like, you're gonna have to deal with all this shit. Like, there's gonna be all this shit, da-da-da, wooty-woo. And then I think to myself, like, okay, even though that comes with the territory, is that you, though? Is that really you, Nico? Because I'll tell you this, I was promoting clubs when I was like 14, 15 years old. I was like promoting teeny bopper clubs back when I was in the Bay. Uh-huh. So I already had my time like really partying when I was like 16 years old, right? And it just resurfaced, you know, ever since my name really started to like move as like a DJ, right? And, you know, I think back to myself and, like, during the times when, like, I was always at the club, like, you know, you could even ask Diho, I was at the club, like, 3 nights a fucking week. I was drinking every fucking day, and I was listening to the same music all those fucking weekends, right? Mm-hmm. And I think what people don't understand is that, like, it does get, like, mentally draining, but it also does get physically draining being around that all the fucking time. Yeah. And, you know, it's no diss to them at all. Like, you know, they're still doing their thing. We still keep it cordial and whatnot. But I came to realize, like, hey, this is doing 2 things. One, this is taking me away from my physical body because my body literally cannot take this anymore. But 2, it's also causing a rift between me and my girl. And, you know, I think a lot of people talk about the sacrifice that comes with, like, the lifestyle that you want to live and whatnot. But, like, when it comes to DJing, like, why is it that we glorify, like, getting fucking drunk every fucking weekend with your homies? Why is it that, like, why is it like that? Why is it we always have to be with hella fucking girls around us and whatnot, right? Yeah. And there were a couple things that really hinted to me that, it could be different, right? I remember booking DJ Zoe. You know Zoe, right? Yeah. I remember booking Zoe for Arena San Francisco one time, and Zoe pulls up with his girl, his girl's friends, his homies, and I'm like, oh, Zoe's like one of the first people where I know, and, you know, my girl would come to the club with me all the time, but Zoe, being Zoe, like, you know, and Zoe's like a really good fucking DJ that travels the fucking world. Like, oh, and he's bringing his girl with him? Like, oh, why can't we just normalize that shit? Yeah. Right? And then there'd be DJs like Jay Espinoza, who I'd talk to. I'd be like, Jay, you want a drink? He's like, oh, no, I'm good, bro. I'm good. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, cool. And I'm not going to force it on him. It's really whatever at that point. And so, like, how come a 3-time Red Bull champion denies alcohol, and how come and I look up to Jay Espinosa too, and how come another DJ who I really look up to, like, can bring his girl in here? Oh, so there is a different silver lining when it comes to being in this industry. It's just that, and it took me a minute to figure that out because of the misconception of how DJs are supposed to be. Yeah. Of how this DJ lifestyle is supposed to be. Like, I'm here for the longevity, bro. Like, I see a lot of people, like, really tapping out and getting tired by, like, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. I'm like, bro, I could go till, like, 3 now. Like, I'm good.
Do you feel like that has a lot to do with Western DJ culture?
You know what? I mean, I could assume, like, in Europe, they'd be taking way more hardcore shit, right?
Yeah, so that's the reason why I asked about that, right? Is, you know, I've been to Europe a handful of times, and, you know, I go out there. I love good music, obviously. And I don't really see them binge drinking or doing the whole bringing females thing nearly as much, even close, to be honest. It's almost like they're for the music than the perception of who they are.
Let me ask you this. Yeah. Who are the biggest DJs in the world?
EDM DJs?
EDM DJs. Where are they from? Europe. Bro, it's Zed. Mm-hmm. It's Calvin Harris.
Tiesto.
It's Fred again. Mm-hmm. Tiesto. They're all from fucking Europe, right? So if what you're saying is true, and these are the biggest fucking DJs in the world, you know what I mean? So maybe it is Western thinking that we're supposed to have, like, all this shit in the background, right? Like, how come, like to make it poppin', I don't need hella fucking girls in the back. I'll literally have my girl on my side, and, like, if I do something different out of, like, she knows my sets at this point, so she knows what the fuck I'm gonna play.
Yeah.
But if I do something different and she's like, yo, babe, that was fucking fire, I'm happy for that. That is a proud moment for me. That makes me happy, bro. Not like all these fucking rando chicks behind me, like trying to like, you know, just be like the next fucking ABG fucking next to me. No fucking offense. I'm just saying, bro.
Yeah.
But you know, like I think that maybe it is just a Western thing, you know, because I feel like at this point in my life, again, I will keep on stressing this, that I'm 31 years fucking old, bro.
Yeah.
So I don't have time to fuck around anymore, right? But like, I really take DJing, my passion, also as a job. This is my fucking job. This is my livelihood. There have been moments where, I mean, you could even ask like DJ Broken about this shit. You could ask Deho about this shit. There's been moments where I've fucked up and I'm just like, fuck, like, I think I was just way too fucking drunk to even like, you know, do this. Like, I have my moments. I know every DJ has had their moment, but honestly, like, now I just feel like I'm on a completely different level, like DJing sober. Or maybe even just a little bit high, like sure, like I'll still partake in like extracurriculars, whatever.
Yeah.
But you know, like I just feel like I'm on a different level mentally to where like I can focus and like my job seems a lot more clearer and bearable. I'll give you a perfect example, right? Like me and my boys, we do this thing called Kawaii Rave. It used to be Pokemon Rave, but we got hit with a freaking cease and desist, so we stopped that shit right away, right? After 10 parties.
Hey, you got away with it.
We got away with it for 10 parties, so I was not tripping, right? Yeah. So once we transformed to Kawaii Rave, it was a shift. We changed the music, but I'm not an EDM DJ, and that's not a genre that I'm like super familiar with. So literally all I would hear was and I'm just like, dude, going through that for 5 fucking hours is like mentally draining for me, right? Like I don't want to be here. And so again, top of the year, not drinking. We did 4 parties in January. I think we hit San Diego, Orange County, the Circle. We hit LA, and we also hit Sacramento, all within a month, right?
Nice.
All 4 of those dates, sober. And all 4 of those dates, I was like, oh, why is EDM just a lot more bearable for me now? Like, how come I could go through 5-6 hours now feeling absolutely great and wanting to do more? I don't do I don't do none of that shit, bro. Yeah. Like, I'll just do weed or like some shrooms and I'll call it a day, right? But how come I can go through these nights longer? This music is more bearable when I'm completely sober. It's nuts, right?
Yeah, it is nuts because I think with DJing, you have genres that you can or cannot play, right? Ones that hopefully you align with.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you play more hip hop than anything.
I've found my bag.
Yeah?
I found my bag when it comes to like EDM.
Gotcha. And I've noticed that with certain music genres, there is certain substances that people like to partake in that kind of align with that culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you think about hip hop, R&B, what do you think of?
Bottle popping and like, you know, marijuana.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And on the other side, EDM, right? What do you think of?
I think of like Ye and fucking what was my
popping pills?
Popping pills,
Yep.
some Special K.
Yeah, exactly.
Some K-Town. You know what I'm saying?
There's some K-Town. So I don't know if you want to go there. But there has to be a reason for that, right? I'm not sure exactly why. I'm not a scientist. I can't even speak on that. But I do see the affinity to it. Like, I'm not going to lie. I've partaken in things on both ends.
Yeah.
And I can see why it's more bearable and maybe at times even more enjoyable to take certain substances than others. You know, like I personally, prior to, because I didn't always do things except for, 25 was when I was like, okay, let me be experimental things.
Yeah.
Prior, I just drank. That's it. Like, I think I smoked weed like once, but I could not be in an EDM like rave. You know, I was like, dude, this is, even when I drank, I was like, dude, this is too much. Even when I was sober, I still was like, I don't really get it until I took substances that kind of aligned with the culture. I'm not saying obviously you have to do it to enjoy it, but after that, I was like, oh, I kind of get it. To where even if I stayed sober, I was like, I kind of understand this. I'm not suggesting people go out and try that shit right. I'm just saying my own experience.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how that is because we're talking about EDM DJs from Europe and then Western DJs out here how we partake it, in different. Obviously, there are more genres than hip hop out here.
Yeah.
But that lifestyle really fits with what we're doing, like being in the clubs on the West Coast and stuff like that, like hip hop, R&B. That is something that's been around for a long time. And what's also funny is that a lot of the DJs kind of eventually stop doing that. Like when I first met Miles, he was sober.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how he was medicating with, drinking alcohol in order for him to be this person who had to be louder, right? Because everyone around him was loud. But it's like that environment kind of sets a tone for how you're supposed to be, quote unquote.
How you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you hit it right on the head. That's how you're supposed to be. That's not necessarily who you are, right? So, I respect Miles. I even respect Jay and any of the other DJs who are just not drinking, because I think that at least in my experience, right? Like, alcohol can really take you out of character. Whether you get super turnt and you become the person you're completely not, or even just a little bit to where you make like a small bad decision that could like change your entire fucking life, right? Like, that shit is real. But, if you think of it this way, right? Like, on a legal perspective, like, if you're driving and you're drunk even just a little bit, you could fucking get a DUI. Yeah. Right? And that's like a very basis, like, standard level. But now, like, if I go to the club and I'm fucking driving, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm just like, yeah, you could pull me over, but like, I didn't do fucking shit. Like, I literally didn't do shit. So I don't know what you're about to get me for. Not to say that ever happened, but I'm just saying, right? And, I think that when it comes to like Miles just being like the superstar DJ he is, right? Like, there's a lot of clarity that comes with not partaking in all these extracurriculars all the time, because like, can you imagine if Miles Medina was drunk all the fucking time, right? Do you think he'd be coming up with the crazy shit that he's like putting out right now? Like, maybe, but also maybe not. Like,
that'd be wild if he was, but
it'd be wild, but like, I don't fucking know. Like, and I've had situations where I'll tell this story, like, on Twitch, when Twitch was super popping, like, one of my homies, DJ Audio One, he's probably in his like 40s right now, right? And so he's been DJing for probably as long as I've been alive or whatever. But he had a stroke live on Twitch.
Oh, fuck.
Like, it was like he was live streaming and he had a stroke on camera. So his family and whatnot had to, like, go get him and everything. Long story short, he recovered. He's good. He's still with us. And I remember talking to him like, hey, bro, like, just you as an older DJ, I respect you, but like, what's some advice that you would give me? And he's just like, honestly, bro, if you could cut out the alcohol, you can cut out all the bullshit, like, you're going to have a much clearer mind. You're going to actually have longevity in this thing, because, I think the last thing you want is to be like 40 years old and pass away from like a fucking stroke because you've just been drinking alcohol for like 20 something years. Like, and I'm like, man, like, longevity is the name of this fucking game. And that doesn't even just pertain to DJing, but I want to have kids soon, bro. So it's like, I want my kids to see me on like a level that like I've never been at before in like my career. And just as like a dad, I want my niece and nephew to see me in like that light too. I want my family to see me in like a really good light too. But like, when you're coming home, and mind you, my mom would come with me to the club, right?
Oh, wow.
She really would. She's a very supportive mom. My dad, that's just not his thing, but he supports me from afar. It's all good. But, like, when I'm coming home from a club at like 2, 3 a.m., and I'm just dead ass tired, and I'm sleeping until like 11 o'clock on their couch or whatever, and they see me in like some of the worst situations I've ever been, like, that's not cool. Like, that's not cool. Like, imagine, you said it earlier, like you shouldn't let your, like, if you're a parent, you shouldn't be like screaming and whatnot like in front of your kids, because that can be very traumatizing. So for me, does that apply if I'm like super drunk and wasted and my niece and nephew see me like just fucking out of shape, out of breath, eyes just hella like just out of it? Like, yeah, that should be applied to that too. I don't want my niece and nephew to see me that way. Like, I'm good off that.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, you have a responsibility too. So I mean, now that you do have nieces and nephews, like,
Yeah.
did you feel that prior to going sober?
It was always a thought, but I wouldn't say it was like one of my, like, top of the list priorities, right? Like my niece and nephew, they'll always have a special place in my heart. But I remember telling Jackie one time, I was like, yeah, like when it comes to my niece and my nephew, even like her niece, and when she and I eventually have kids, right? Like I want to be able to take them to places that I was never at, or I've never been, or something that a kid would normally not experience. No Diddy, by the way. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would want them to, like, go to concerts, because I didn't go to a concert until I was, like, 18 or 19. And that's when I saw like Drake, Kendrick, and Wale in the same lineup. It was fucking fire. It was amazing. But I want them to experience like really dope shit like when they're young. That way, when they're older, they can kind of just brag about this shit, right? Like, tell all your little friends you met your favorite rapper or whatever. I want to be able to do that for them. And so, again, I wouldn't say it was like one of the top priorities, but it was always in the back of my mind. Like, okay, like I do have a responsibility, even though I'm not there every single day. Like I am a role model to them. So I need to act accordingly. I need to act like a role model to them.
Yeah, that's funny how that works, huh?
Yeah.
That eventually, like the way you're perceived by the people you care about actually matters a lot.
It matters, bro. Like, and it's only for the people that really matter to you.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Like all this social media shit doesn't fucking matter, bro. You could have a million followers. I'm already bulletproof when it comes to that shit. You could say whatever the fuck you want about me on the internet. I literally don't care. I learned my lesson way before I got popping on the internet too.
What do you mean?
Okay, so I'll tell this story. This is actually pretty fucking funny. I remember I interviewed, and again, this is when I was interviewing hella artists. I had interviewed Stupid Young, and this was like one of his first interviews out, right? And so, I would just like mention a couple things here and there, and the interview was like, it was cool. It wasn't the best one, but it was cool, right? And I remember going in the comment section, and they were killing me, bro.
Really?
They're like, this guy's a fucking square. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This guy's about to snitch on him, da-da-da. We'll do it. Just like, bro, hella shit, right? And I'm just like, oh, fuck. Like, this shit kind of hurts. But then, like, in my brain, I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, I know people deal with this type of shit every day, and this is the first time that I'm dealing with it. But literally, like, if there's any time I feel like a comment or whatever is about to get to me, I think about that moment, and I'm just like, nah, like, that was the worst time. Like, you've survived, like, way worse comments, bro. Like, you're fucking good. But, it's that, like, odd thing to where, like, I feel like at the end of the day, like, whether you post something on social media or whatnot, like everyone for some reason like wants to be like loved in some sort of way. So one hate comment is something that's going to anchor the entire thing, which sucks.
Yeah, because as human beings, the reason why we are able to kind of laser in on the negative comments is because in general we're made to like survive. So when things back then in the day gave you like a negative feeling, you focused on it because it was a means of survival, right? Oh shit, this made me feel bad. I need to stay away from it. So now, let's say you're streaming. If you were to read the comments, and if you're a popular streamer, then comments just flood in, right? You're going to be able to laser focus on the one negative comment, even though you have everything else like positive, like. You're going to focus in on that, and that's going to be what sticks out in your mind.
Yeah, and you know what, bro? Like, I mean, I don't always mean to talk about, like, alcohol or lack thereof.
Yeah, no,
or
it's fine, dude. It's actually a very important conversation.
Yeah,
so.
but bro, like, I think even in that, like, when I am having, like, a bad day or something is going wrong, right? Like, even at this moment, I'm having an issue trying to install something in my fucking laptop, and it's annoying the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Like, I have to come to realize, like, okay, like, A, this is a first world problem, right? But B, because it is my problem, I have to learn how to, like, not laser focus on it being a problem. What are other things that I can do to make sure this problem gets solved as opposed to getting mad? You talked about having a temper. My dad has a fucking temper for sure. He, like, really does, bro. And we laugh about it. It's all good, but... like, knowing that about my dad, which ultimately translates to like knowing that about myself. Like I have to figure out ways to make sure I'm constantly like in this calm flow state of just trying to figure something out, as opposed to like letting something bother my day. Like, you know, I'll do this shit all the time, and this is why social media is like probably the worst drug out of like alcohol. I can't really speak on the other shit, but like, you know what I mean, shrooms, marijuana, whatever. But because it is just so accessible to everybody, whether you are 31 years old, 36 years old, shit, even fucking like 5-year-olds or whatever have social media now, and it's fucking ridiculous. Like you're literally getting hit with like that constant dose of like dopamine like every couple seconds, and honestly, like it's hard to have a like talking relationship with somebody nowadays, right? Like it's very hard to just talk to somebody without referencing some sort of video on like social media or whatever. Like I was just telling you, like, you know, during this break, it was like, it's like back then I would call somebody or text somebody in order to be like, hey, like, you know, you good, just checking up on you or whatever. But our idea of checking up on somebody nowadays is just sending them a fucking video to like look at. Yeah. And honestly, like I don't think that's like a really good way to like be communicating with somebody, right? Like even my girl will know, like there's a moment during our nights where I'm just like, I cannot watch any more fucking videos. Like I really can't. So I'm literally just gonna curl up and just be like, I'm good. I'm trying to fucking go to sleep now. Yeah. But because like there is so much information that I'm taking in on a daily basis that at the end of the day, like I really just need like some peace and quiet, right? So like, you know, me being an independent DJ, producer, and all that stuff, like I start my day at like 8 o'clock. I'm showered and everything by like 9, and I'm working all the way through like 6 or 7, whether it be like practicing DJing, booking some gigs, producing, responding to emails, setting up the next fucking rave or whatever, right? And then by that time, like, oh, also too, I'm not looking at social media until 10 o'clock. I'm already up by 8. Mm-hmm. I am not gonna, and you know, there's days where I fall off, but for the most part, like, I'm not looking on Instagram or anything until 10 o'clock. My phone's still on Do Not Disturb, so I'm not waking up to everyone's fucking problems right away. I want to start my day with just, Nico, what's my problem right now? Okay, I need to take a shit. So I'm going to take a fucking shit in peace, dude. Yeah. I'm going to shower in peace. I got to walk my dog. I have my own like things that I need to worry about in my household before I get to everyone else's problems who like may or may not need my assistance. And then by like 7 or 8 o'clock, like, yeah, I'll be on Instagram, but I'm not going to respond to no emails. I'm not going to respond to text messages about like, you might need me to do this. You might need me to do that. Like literally I'll have people text me at like 10, 11 o'clock and I'll see it. And I'm just like, I'll literally wait till 10 o'clock the next day because I'm not dealing with any of this shit because I still need my peace of mind. Because think about the world we live in, right? Everyone, for the most part, has like a 9-to-5 job. I'm talking about Western. Everyone has, for the most part, like a 9-to-5 job. They still have stuff that they love to do. They more than likely, if they're not like alone by themselves, like they more than likely have a family, whether it be like a dog, a cat, kids, whatever, right? And then you have like your social media shit that you just use to like entertain yourself. Oh, but then you also have like these shows that you want to watch or whatever. There is just so much information like hitting you from the second you wake up, bro, that by the time it's 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, it's no wonder everyone's so fucking tired and doesn't want to deal with the rest of the day because there's so much that just hit them already. And so I've had to practice, like, this is my time after 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Nobody else is touching that. This is my time with my girl, and I have to, like, prioritize that. Okay, and then 8 o'clock between, like, 8 and 7 o'clock, like, this is my time where I get to do whatever the fuck I need to do throughout the day. And, like, I've been able to organize my life so much to that point to where, like, I don't really stress out as much anymore. You know, there will be stressful moments, like I can't get my fucking thing installed on my laptop, but at least I'm only dealing with that, and I'm not dealing with like that and like 20 other things at one time, because I don't have the capacity to do that.
Yeah. So I recently learned something. Like, you know how people always compare your brain to like a computer?
Yeah.
Very much like a computer, you could have a bunch of tabs open on a browser, you know? And what you don't know is that while you're leaving these tabs open in your mind, that it's actually consuming a certain amount of energy, whether you're looking at it or not. It could be running in the background, you know? So very similarly, like when you're opening social media, looking at these things, and you're actually getting very distracted by tens of thousands of things because you're scrolling so quickly through these things that you take 5 seconds to process.
I hear you.
It's just sitting there. You're like, oh, I haven't fully processed this. On to the next, right? Swipe to the next, swipe to the next. But it's there. It's like, you ever notice that sometimes you have certain intrusive thoughts?
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, what? I'm trying to focus on this. Why am I thinking about this other thing?
You know, like I said, there are days where I fall off, right?
Yeah.
And so I have like content days for the most part, but like yesterday I just woke up at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, cool, I have like extra time like for this 1 hour to like do content. Bad fucking idea, because that shouldn't have been the first thing I did. The first thing I should have did was start my regular day earlier, and because I have that extra hour, get to that content like later on in the day. Because what happened was that normally when I'm producing and doing everything from like 9 o'clock all the way through 1, and then by 1 o'clock I'm already like posting something or whatever, I just like end up leaving it. Yesterday, when I woke up early, I started doing content, which ultimately meant I was on my phone way earlier than I should have been. And I know, because your phone also tells you too, that I was on my phone significantly more yesterday than I am on like a regular day.
Yeah.
And like I've trained my brain to be like, okay, cool. Like I have like a time lock on like Instagram.
Same.
Right? Like I'm just like 30 minutes or an hour after that, like really just cap yourself, bro. Like stop. Like really fucking stop, right? And to the point where I know my productive days is when I'm not on my phone as much. I remember one time, and really this was one time over the past couple of months, I felt like I had a really fucking productive day. I was making like fucking 10 beats. I was fucking on it. I was going, bro.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the day, and I checked my phone, I was like, oh, I was on my phone for an hour and 30 minutes in total for the entire day. I'm like, that is literally my sample size of like, oh, but the days where I'm on my phone for like 3 hours, 4 hours, bro, like I feel like I don't have a productive day, and it all makes sense now.
Yeah. I mean, that's so tough, right? Because now our lives are integrated into this supercomputer in our hands.
Yeah.
It's hard to get away from. Like my regular job requires me to be on the phone. You know, in the middle of us talking about this, I had to check in with the client.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know what happened when I checked in with that client? 10 other pop-ups.
Yeah.
Messages from this, messages from that, reminders for this. I'm like, holy fuck, you know? And this is something I learned recently, but it's going to sound dumb, but you won't die if you don't check your phone for an hour or two. It's weird. You won't die.
But you feel like you're going to die.
Yeah.
Even without knowing it, because you're just so used to it being in your fucking hand.
Exactly. But that's the thing, though. This piece of technology has made it so you feel dependent on it. You know? Like, now I wake up to emails and phone calls, and just like you, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna start my day. And I used to do this where it became a terrible habit where, like, if I went to, just like you, I would, first thing, I gotta take a shit.
Yeah.
You know what I do to keep myself occupied? I would go on my phone while taking a shit. And you know what? Like, maybe a weird sample size too, but I'm taking a shit way longer when I have my phone with me.
Bro,
right?
yes.
So I've switched it to something a little bit more productive, which is like I bring a book with me now, so I'll read while I'm on the shitter. but
that's crazy. I love that. That's cool. That's cool.
It's a little bit.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different. But I also have noticed in general, overall, is that we don't have enough time to be alone with just our thoughts. And I used to think that I was like optimizing my life by bringing a book, right? And maybe I'm not on social media while I'm on my phone. Like I'll cook and I'll put a podcast on, right? I'll be in the shade, I'll read a fucking book. I'm just like, I just don't want to waste my time. But I've come to understand that you actually need time to be bored and just allow your thoughts to ruminate and, you know, allow you to process like what's going on with your life.
I think we are the type of people, every human beings, we're the type of beings that are constantly looking for answers to whatever the fuck is going on with our lives. But we're always looking for answers and we're never just asking ourselves what the fuck is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And so what happens when you're not listening to that podcast? What happens when you're not reading your book? What happens when you're not taking a shit and you know, you're not fucking busy while you're taking a shit? Like, you don't allow your thoughts to really get into you and let you think about, like, what is it that I really want out of, like, this day? What is it that I really want out of, like, myself? Is there an issue going on right now that I'm personally not dealing with? We don't allow those thoughts to happen because we let a book distract us. We let a podcast while we're cooking distract us. We let looking on Instagram while we're taking a shit distract us. And, you know, frankly, like, I'm not even saying I'm perfect because I deal with this shit too. Literally and figuratively. You know what I mean? I deal with this shit like too. And so it just goes to show, like, the days where I'm like not on my phone or I'm not always trying to do something, I have a much better, happier day. Yeah. And, you know, it sucks when it also sucks when I'm an extremely independent person. So if you think about my household, right? My mom is a single child, right? She has no siblings. My dad is independent as fuck. Like, my dad used to work at San Quentin and fucking, like, drive back and forth. We were in the Bay Area, so that's like a drive. Yeah. And so, like, you know, he was always off doing his work, which means my sister's independent, which means I'm independent, which means, like, we would always individually be doing our own things differently at the same time. Rare, you know, there'd be occasions where we get together, but, you know, like, as an independent person, like, I've always felt like, oh, I have to do something in order. I have to feel busy. I have to feel independent. Whatever feeling independent means, really. And truthfully, like, Jackie's had to remind me a couple times, like, hey, like, it's okay to be bored. Like, it's okay to not do shit. It's okay to just, like, lay down and just, like, sit and whatever. Like, I was at the dog park. Like, I find so much goodness happening when I'm at the dog park with my dog and I just let him roam free. He's not going to leave the park because it's gated. Yeah. And I get to just, like, kick back and just be like, all right, cool. I don't have to think about shit right now. Like, I just have to worry about him, which I try to and also try not to at the same time. But, you know, those are some of, like, my happier moments, like, throughout, like, these past couple of months, because I'm just like, cool. Like, I get to step away from everything. I get to not be on my phone for a while and just actually enjoy what's going on around me. And so, you know, I always have, like, this weird, I think another thing that happened was when, like, and this happened when I was young, but, like, I stopped filming when I was in concerts. And because, like, I was always constantly around it because, you know, I'm in radio, so I'm always around, like, celebrities and whatnot, so I'm always seeing shit that's going on. But B, like, how much am I filming and how much am I actually, like, paying attention to what the hell's happening? Because I think I'd rather soak in the moment mentally and maybe even eventually forget about it until a conversation is brought up, because more than likely I'm not going to pull out my phone and show you, like, a good time that I had when I saw, like, J. Cole or fucking Beyonce or whatever, right? Like, because that doesn't fucking matter. I'd rather tell you the fucking story than scroll through my phone for, like, 5 minutes trying to find the fucking video just to show you, and you're not even going to retain the information anyway.
Yeah. Do you feel, because now that you mentioned, it sounds like you're very present, right? To not record a concert is very difficult to many people. Right? So you're like, I just want to be present. I want to be in the moment. Did you ever have that instance pop up in your relationship? Because how much younger is Jackie than you?
She was born in Oh, I'm sorry. I got all the dates mixed up. My sister was born in 96. Jackie was born in 98.
Okay,
Yeah, so
gotcha.
my sister's 3 years younger than me. Jackie's 5 years younger than me.
Okay, so there is a little bit of an age gap,
A little
right?
bit.
So I've dated someone who had was 6 years younger than me, and I'm not perfect either. So I'm within this circle of people who have been on their phones when they should be in their relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
I've started to notice more and more now because I see younger relationships and I talk to younger people. I also see people in older relationships that their phones are more prominent in their relationships than ever. Right? It's almost like a way to avoid awkwardness sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, we have nothing to talk about. Let me go on social media. Let me just pay attention to this and that. And just like how you're saying, it's avoiding awkward conversations, but it's also like avoiding boredom. And I feel like it's making us more antisocial to our significant others.
Yeah, that was actually I wouldn't even say it's like an issue between me and Jackie, but like she'll even tell you, right? Like there'd be she'd be talking about like how she wants to do like this, that, and the third. Like there's not enough time in the day. And I'm just like, no, babe, there is enough time in the day. You just gotta wake up at a much earlier time and, not be on your phone for like an hour or 2 hours or whatever. Because truthfully, like it's not an issue between us, but it's something that like, I saw for her and I'd straight up tell her like, I think you should just lay off your phone for a bit, like, because that is an actual issue, not just for her, but just, if we're going to generalize it, everybody deals with that type of shit. Like when you wake up, it's the first thing that you should do is not look at your fucking phone. Like you need to take a shit, right? Yeah. And the only reason why I know any of this is because I read a book. Oh my God, what is the book? It's a very small book. How to Steal Like an Artist.
Oh, I love that book.
There was a couple things that I took from that book that I still do to this day. One, it told me that that you need to like switch up your daily routine so that like you can actually like, get those creative juices flowing in a different way. And one way to do that was to change the way you look at time, right? So what happens after 11:59, it becomes 12, and after 12:59, it becomes 1 o'clock again. It's like a reset. So you kind of feel like, oh, like you're kind of resetting your day, but you feel like you don't have like that much more time anymore because like the time just literally reset it on you. So the one thing they told me was to like, oh, like go to military time. I literally I've had military time on my phone like ever since I read that book. And Jackie would ask me in the beginning like, why do you have military time? It's because of that, because I literally feel like I have more time throughout the day. Yeah. Now I'm kind of used to it, right? So there goes that. But it's just little changes. And I think another change that it was saying was like, don't look at your phone like as soon as you wake up, because again, if you're getting flushed with so much information, like you're tired by the time it's like 9 o'clock. I don't want to deal with that shit. Yeah. And I remember, and that's what also like veered me away from like ever getting like a 9 to 5 job, bro. Like after college, I got into radio. I guess you can consider that my 9 to 5 job, but it's not like I was getting paid fucking hella money. Radio doesn't make any fucking money. Yeah. There you go. Right. Hey. I never took like a regular 9 to 5 job where I clock in at 9, I clock out at 5, and then I have like all that time at the end of the day to like bullshit or whatever. I don't have that luxury. And so it's allowed me to become a lot more creative with my time and understand like, oh, time really is of the essence, because like instead of like sitting down like doing, and this is no shot to anybody who does have a 9 to 5, right? But instead of sitting down and like maybe bullshitting for like 8 fucking hours, at least for like other jobs that I've had, like I can actually like use hour 1 to do something that I love to do, hour 2 to maybe extend it, hour 3 to like work on something new, hour 4 to do blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like I've become a lot more creative in that sense to where like I feel like I'm maximizing my time every day. Yeah, I did like an hour drive just to get here, but I feel like my time is being maximized doing this podcast.
Yeah. It's funny that you brought up that book because I've read that book too. And one of the things that stood out to me was the guy talked about his workstations.
Yeah.
About how he has like a digital workstation where it's like his laptop, his computer, the things he uses to design, like Adobe Illustrator, things like that. And then he has his analog workstation where it's just papers and pens and markers. And I think nowadays it's harder to slow down than ever. But I think it's the most critical thing you could definitely do. You know, I used to just type everything. Now I spend time writing, right? And it's almost like,
that's dope.
What is the benefit to that? And it's using your brain a lot more, you know, unlike where you could delete things. Once you make a mark on that page, especially if you do it in pen, it's really hard to go back, right? And just like how you were talking about earlier, and this is going to sound bad because I don't think this is true for everyone, but we are less critical thinkers now than ever because we have this thing where we could Google the answers, you know, and sometimes Google doesn't have the answers that we need. So therefore we need to sit down, buckle down and use critical thinking to really solve these things.
I'm dealing with something like that right now. Not on like a I guess life-threatening scale, right? But so I started producing music back in July of 2023, right? And nowadays, for people who don't know, you could literally have a mouse and like plug in chords. You could plug in like what it's going to sound like. And I'm thinking like, oh, that's really fucking cool. There's like no thought that comes with this shit, right? And I watch videos all the time on how you could do it. And I'm like, oh, like it's really fucking easy to produce music. Huh, how come I'm not getting the sound that I want though? Even though I'm like copying this, copying that, I'm just not getting the sound. So I always told myself like, hey, like learn how to play piano. Learn how to actually like do this shit. And plugging in the fucking chords through your mouse versus like actually playing, it's a completely different sound. There's a more humanized feel when it comes to actually playing the piano. Yeah. There's a lot more mistakes that come with it, but the mistakes are what make it more real, right?
Yeah.
So you think about like when you're typing something up, like, yeah, you could go on chat GPI or whatever the fuck just to like type something up for you. But like, there's no more of your flavor anymore, right? You can get, I mean, there's like AI DJ shit now. Yeah, you can get an AI DJ, but like I can mess up and that can be something like super cool that no one's ever going to fucking know about, right? Like, you can, I know there's the conversation about like, big ass EDM DJs just like, basically like recording their pre-recorded mix, and that's cool, that's dope. But I think when you're like at a level where I'm at, where like messing up and whatnot is still like pretty cool, like I can get to like a very happy accident like while I'm DJing, being like, yo, that was actually pretty fucking fire. And I think those are the things that we are forgetting as like human beings. And that's relationship with oneself, right?
Yeah.
We're feeding more into like this digital realm, which, I am not saying don't embrace it. You should definitely embrace it. But instead of letting this iRobot situation happen where like all these computers are controlling you, you learn how to control it and integrate it into your life, so you still have like a humanized feel to everything.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned AI DJs and your mistake as like a human being, right? Because it could be dope. And I think that where we're going with technology, where everything is so perfect and you could just plug things into Chat GPT for it to correct all your grammatical errors, that human element, some might call it a mistake, is what we're going to need the most coming up. I think now like people need to connect on a more human level where being digital is not enough, because now there are more people who are depressed than ever. You know what I mean? Like there is something that you cannot get out of now, even a text message, you know what I mean? A DM, voice memo, even like this human connection. Like one of the reasons why I like doing this in person too, like specifically, is because like I don't want to do over Zoom. There's a human dynamic that you won't get through Zoom.
Yeah.
Maybe some people can get still. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's less likely, you know? And it's coming full circle, right? I think everyone's realizing it. They're not coming to terms with it quite yet, you know, where technology integrates everything they do, even dating, right? Online dating is like a thing now. Like that connection, that initial spark is like not quite there as much, right? Because now you're texting each other, and later down the line, hopefully, like you meet them. And a lot of things are lost in translation because, dude, we had a guy who came on here, and he develops like AI applications, and one of it is it'll scan the person's profile, like a dating profile, and it'll spit out the pickup line that's supposed to work on them.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. You know what I mean? Like we're slowly becoming like iRobots, right? But what we don't know is because we want to think of technology as a tool, something to aid us in our lives, right? To make it better. But we can become too reliant on it.
You know, I hate FaceTime.
Oh, really?
I hate FaceTiming people, bro. I haven't even told my girl that, but I hate FaceTiming. The reason being is because, like, I guess there's always been, like, this lingering, like, issue of mine to where, like, I want to miss you, right? I miss my girl when she comes home, like, oh, I missed you. You know what I mean? But, like, for anybody else, it's like, I want to fucking miss you before I see your fucking face again, right? So, like, if I'm constantly FaceTiming people, like, I feel like I just seen them, and then we get in, like, this weird translation of, like, oh, I just saw you the other day. Are you sure that was me? Oh, no, maybe it was just a video that I saw. That's another reason why I don't like going on, like, Instagram or, like, TikTok or whatever just to see what everyone's doing, because by the time I see them, I want to have, like, conversations to where something is just, like, brand new to me, and I don't have to bring up, like, oh, yeah, bro, you know, I saw you. Like, I was just talking to Sush. You know Sush?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, I was just talking to Sush the other day, and I was just like, yeah, bro, like, you know, I heard you're doing, like, this thing, like, this hyphy house or whatever. And he was telling me, like, oh, yeah, bro, you know, like, we just hit, like, Seattle. We just hit this. We just hit Vancouver. And I was like, no shit, bro. I didn't realize you went to Vancouver. So how was Vancouver? Mm-hmm. I like to have these actual conversations as opposed and like getting new information as opposed to like, hey, bro, so, you know, I heard you took this over to Vancouver. Like, by the way, I hope you ended up doing this. Like, by the time you were there, like, just cutting to the chase right away. Like, You get what I'm saying? So even when it comes to like FaceTime, it's like, you know, especially if I haven't seen you in a long time, I enjoy doing it. But it's like, I'm not about to FaceTime you every fucking day because it's like, I feel like there's just nothing new with that. There's nothing exciting. There's no distance apart in order to make us like grow fonder. You know, earlier you said like, it's kind of strange how like when I ended up moving from LA to over here, like me and my sister ended up getting closer. It's like, yeah, because we were distant. So we actually got a lot closer. Our hearts became a lot more fonder because of the distance. The issue right now when it comes to like me with like everybody else or whatever your situation is that like we want to feel connected so much to where we don't miss each other enough. And because we don't miss each other enough, we end up getting bored of each other and those relationships aren't as strong anymore. I like not talking to people for hella fucking long and then catching up. I love that. Yeah. I hate seeing you every fucking day.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because I have always been the guy to put together chat groups between friend circles.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I'm always that guy. Like, why is this chat group alive? Because Peter started it, right? And it's for specific things. Like, this is for everyday things. This is when we talk about hobbies and shit. This is when we talk about special events. And it keeps us in touch, right? But sometimes, because it keeps us so in tune with each other's lives that we don't ask what's going on. We don't communicate.
Exactly.
In a way where we could build any depth.
You know how I have like a core group of friends back home? And I mean this in the best way possible, but they more than likely don't know who I am now, which is a very sad thing because A, you know, it's the distance. They obviously have their own lives. But B, because I'm also not there, it's like very hard to explain who I am now. right? And they will listen, they will get a glimpse of like who I am, whether it be through like podcasts or social media or whatever. But frankly, like me also not being the best friend, like I don't have the opportunity to ask them like how they're really doing. There are flash moments where I just try to get like a glimpse of like what they're really going through, and some will tell me, some will not. Some of it's bullshit, some of it's like, all right, cool, like at least we got to talk a little bit. But there's not that opportunity to like do that anymore and just be as connected as where we once were. My best friend, right, his name is Dino. He was doing all our clips for our Mexipino podcast, right? And I had to be funky with him like in the beginning of the year. I was like, hey bro, honestly, like I think I'm going to have to like not have you do this job anymore. And before he could even ask why, I was like, you know what, bro, like truthfully, it's because like I feel like our relationship has just become a lot more like transactional over this time where you've been, essentially working for me. And I don't like that. And even though we've been keeping in touch with like, oh, Dino, the next podcast is up. Can you cut these clips? Yeah, bro, the clips are up. The clips are good. Like, post whenever you want. All right, cool. Thank you, bro. That's us talking. That's us keeping in touch. But we're not actually like communicating with each other about like how we like actually feel and how we actually are. And the sad thing is, bro, is that like when he and I were having this conversation, he was telling me a whole bunch of shit that was like, going down with like him, his personal life, his interpersonal relationships. And I was like, bro, like, why didn't you tell me about any of this? Because we have been communicating over the past couple of months. He's like, oh, like, I just know you're like hella busy and like, we're already getting all this work in. So I didn't want to like bombard you with like all this other information. I'm just like, man, like at this point, I'm more than willing to sacrifice like this transactional shit that you and I have in order to save this relationship from like going down the shitter.
Yeah.
And he even told me, and I'll actually call him more now just to like catch up and just be like, like, how's your life? Like what's going on with you? And we actually have a lot more meaningful conversations now than we did last year. And it's only been like month 4 of 2024.
Dang. So wow, that's wild that you said that, because now I gotta ask you. You obviously work with your girlfriend too.
Yeah. The age-old question.
How does that work out?
It's funny because even I noticed she just did a talk over at what's that fucking school? CSU Fullerton. Mm-hmm. She just did a talk over there for like their music and media department. And she even said, and I was surprised she said this, she was like, yeah, my boyfriend / business partner is also here. We also do like Mexipino podcast, Mexipino Food Fest. And that was the first time she ever said like / business partner. Oh. And I didn't feel like hurt by it. I'm like, oh, what do you mean? I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, you essentially do see us in that light too. And so the age-old question when it comes to like me and Jackie and it comes to Mexipino podcast, Mexipino Food Fest is how do you balance the life between relationship and business partners, right?
And so just to make it a little bit more nuanced, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to ask you further. Like you have a working relationship with her, but you're also in a podcast where you discuss things, right? It's not like I send you clips and you cut it up. Right? Like, okay, you do your thing and I'll do my thing. You're actually having conversations. You're seeing each other often.
Yeah.
Just like how you said, like, I want to miss my friends. Like, how do you do that with someone that you're constantly in touch with and also like having these conversations with?
I think it's different when it comes to a relationship because the more you know the person you are with in a relationship, the more opportunity you have to fall in love with them. Right? And I love my girlfriend. I'm not about to do any slimy, grimy shit. Like I'm fucking good. Like I'm really good off of like any of this other shit. And so, the more I learn about Jackie, especially on a daily basis, the more I fall in love with her. And I won't even front. There are episodes that we just don't air because like we would get into like actual arguments and we're just like, yeah, like, let's not air this because it's not appropriate for any of this. And we've had to come to a decision to where, like, you know, this is us as a couple. This is us as business partners. When it comes to anything with our podcast or whatever, yeah, we're bringing in that relationship factor into it. But we also have to be smart to be like, okay, like, we have to know when to separate this. It can't always be business, 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 business. Otherwise, like, you know, you're fucking the CEO or like whatever the fuck, right? Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's not cool. Like, that's not how it should be. And it's difficult because there's no clear-cut answer when it comes to how to maneuver in this situation, because this is the first time I've ever done this. This is the first time she's ever done this. And we're like learning along the way, bro. And it's hard because, like, you know, you have the difficulties of like trying to figure out, is this my business partner talking to me or is this my boyfriend talking to me? And literally, because we're around each other all the time with all the things that we have to do, I think that's just made communication that much more important. It's brought it to a point where I've had to say shit like, as your boyfriend, I think you should go about it this way. As your business partner, I think we should go about it this way. So there's no mixing up the two. Some people might think that's a little bit strange, but honestly, that's communication at its finest. That's its communication at like its top-notch level. To let your person know, like, this is how I'm talking to you as, and to not get hurt because of feelings should not be involved in one thing and feelings should be involved in another. Like, that's constant maneuvering, and that's hard to do, but beautiful to do at the same time if you understand how to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. How long have you guys been doing this?
I mean, we've been together since the beginning of the pandemic. We've been doing the podcast since December of 2022. Like, bro, like, there's honestly rappers that will hit on her. And I'm fine with it, bro, because like I'm in the industry, like for real, and like I know what the fuck goes on, and I know she's a real one. Like she will tell me straight up, like, "Hey, babe, like, you know, like Bobby Shmurda just hit on me," and I was like, "Okay, cool, like what'd he do?" Like, and he's like, "Oh, you know, like he just tried like getting my number, da da da." I was like, "Okay, like it's all good, like I ain't even tripping," and I think like any regular dude would be like tripping off of that. I also think that, like, if the roles were reversed, any other girl would be tripping off of that. But we both know what it is because we've just talked so much.
Yeah, and you're in the industry too, being that you worked with nightclubs and, you know, that scene.
Yeah.
She had to understand, and, you know the name of the game. So it's something you guys have to understand together, right? There's no way that, I feel like, with normal people, like 9-to-5 jobs, they might have a hard time understanding that.
Well, you know, I think that also being a business partner, right? Like, we've seen the gold in we know there's a bigger purpose for what we're doing, and because we're in the industry, like, we learn to put the bullshit. We understand when something is bullshit, and we understand when something is not. We're not putting bullshit to the side. We're understanding what is bullshit and what is not bullshit. Mario hit on her. I don't fucking care. Your job is to be around fucking famous people. I don't give a fuck. They do that to everyone every fucking day. I don't care. And I've had to tell her, like, I really don't fucking care. You know, for me, I've even told her, like, I work with artists, male, female, whatever. She's told me, like, hey, you know, just draw the line. I got you. That's so fucking easy to do. And I understand that now. I work, you know, back when I was working clubs, I've worked with male, female, whatever, and I've had to like really check myself, like, okay, cool, like I gotta draw a line here. Like, because A, it's interfering my work, but B, it's also interfering my relationship, and C, it's also interfering my, I guess, business relationship with my partner too. Like, because if all that goes down, then all of it goes to shit. Like, you know what I mean? And neither of us want our relationship to go to shit, and we don't want what we've built to go to shit.
So I've never done business with a significant other.
Yeah.
How did you identify the moment where you're like, okay, we could go into business together because I trust that you're going to dedicate not just your time and energy to it, but the fact that you guys will stay together?
It's when we understood that that what we're doing is a lot bigger than what we planned for it to be. The example is when we did our first Mexipino Food Fest in Burbank, right? I mean, we got like 20 vendors. It was something super small, right? We were like, okay, maybe like 1,000 people will show up. Bro, 3,000 fucking people showed up, and we were literally like running around like with like headless chickens, like, holy shit, we don't know what to do. Everyone was fine. It was a successful event, and we made some fucking bread. Our vendors made some fucking bread. Everyone was fucking happy. At that point, I turned to her. I said, oh, this is serious because, A, we're doing something where all of these vendors made some fucking money, so their small businesses rise. B, we're doing something for our cultures, Filipino and Mexican. C, we're making fucking bread. And then what happens after that? We hire her brother and sister-in-law to work for us, work with us.
Wow.
Right? Because I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to hire family members to work for something bigger than me, something bigger than like anything I've imagined. And we're already fucking doing that. So there's a lot of responsibility that we are tacking on to where like we're affecting the lives of people who look like us and people who literally have the same blood as us. So there's that much more responsibility that comes with it. Once you see it from that light and understand that like all of this is coming out of like love and like what we can do for our family and for our friends, like it becomes easier, bro. It becomes way easier. I think that a lot of people do things out of like selfishness and like greed, and because like this is going to help their career or whatever, or you know, this is going to like make them hella fucking money. I've never come to a point where it was about fucking money. I came to it once, stepped away from it. But you know, I think that when you focus less about money and you focus more about like the bigger picture, who it affects and how it affects, everything just becomes so much fucking easier, bro. You make decisions just like that.
When it's about the bigger picture, I can see why it's more polarizing as what decisions you need to make. Because sometimes, you know, people have ulterior motives. Obviously, we're in an industry where people do that, you know, opportunity seekers. But yeah, like, yes, I've never seen it like that because I've never had a reason to think that. But in your case, you're representing a culture, like culture.
Yeah.
Right. So it is bigger than yourself. And, you know, you have family involved. Like, that's huge. So I kind of want to go back. You know, obviously, you and Jackie are in a great spot. The fact that you want to talk about kids, you have a business together, that means there is a form of commitment. Right?
Yeah.
You guys are at that point.
Yeah.
What was it like initially when you guys first started dating? Because you guys met through work?
Yeah, we met through work. Again, like she and I were both working at Real 92.3 at the time. And she didn't have like anything that she was doing now. She wasn't hosting for Galaxy. She wasn't hosting for Dodgers. She wasn't hosting on radio. But for her, I just saw like a fire. She was like, yeah, you know, like I want to be on air. I want to host for Dodgers and like whatever other sports teams I can. And I was like, okay, well, you know, what are you doing right now? She's like, oh, well, you know, I already work for Dodgers. And then she ended up getting like hosting gigs in like Rancho Cucamonga, like, you know, shit like that. So she was always driven. And I always love that about her because it's so hard to find somebody who's like actually driven. You could, you know, you'll find more people who say they want to do this, want to do that, but she wanted to do it before I actually even like saw her do it. I just knew she was going to fucking do it, right? Yeah. And for me, I was already in a place to where like I was doing it and I just wanted to do more. I've always wanted to do more and I've always wanted to outdo myself from like the previous year. Yeah. And so, you know, I guess to What was your question again?
How did it start? You mean you guys started working together?
We both just started working together, and like the pandemic hit, and we were doing like fucking Zoom and FaceTime calls, like just to watch movies and shit.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and she has a Mexican. She was living with her parents at the time too, so even when I came back here during the pandemic, she was probably coming over like once a week for like a couple of hours. So it's not like we had a lot of like physical time with each other. And she'll make a joke about this because at one point, probably even still to this point, most of our relationship was all done over the internet. Like I said, we were doing Zoom calls, like watching movies together on Zoom. I would be on Twitch, so then we would communicate like, on Twitch or like on Discord or whatever. And to go to sleep, it's like on FaceTime or Zoom or whatever the fuck. And we did that up until she moved in with me, which was literally a year ago.
Oh, wow.
We've been together for 4 years.
How did you guys transition into a relationship?
Oh, bro, it was honestly very fucking tough in the beginning when she first moved in March of 2023. Because I'll admit there was like awkwardness because like we didn't know how to fill in like the dead space of silence.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, because think about it, like if we're like, all right, good night, babe, like on Zoom or whatever, like okay, then I have like a couple minutes or whatever to myself before I go to sleep. Not the case anymore. Right? And so when she first moved in, it was like, okay, like what do we do now? Or like, and we would get into a lot of arguments in the beginning of her moving in because we just did not know how to act around each other. And we had to get used to like being in different rooms and not talking to each other for a while. Like while she gets ready, like, hey, I'm not going to be in the room while you get ready. I have other shit that I'm going to do. Like we can't always be fucking together, right? Like we'd always shower together, and I'd just be like, I don't always want to shower together. You know what I mean? Like I have to be open about those things, and obviously it would cause like, oh, you don't want to shower with me? Like, no, I just don't always want to shower. I need my personal space. So the issue really in the beginning was trying to figure out like, where is our personal boundaries like when we are physically together. And that's something that a lot of people can't like maneuver through. And that's why a lot of relationships go to waste after they like move in or spend too much time with each other.
Yeah.
Because now that I've lived with her, I've had to come to realize a couple things. Like, yeah, I'm not the cleanest person, but like if you want to clean, like, let's fucking clean. But I'll get to a point to where like, let's say this was one of our issues, right? Let's say it was like laundry, right? I'll do laundry when I know the shit is like super full and I'll take an entire day to do it. Whereas for her, she's used to being in a household where laundry was done like every couple of days. So there'd be moments where it's like, babe, we need to do laundry. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I told her, I was like, if that's what you want to do because it is bugging you, then you do it. I'm not going to be told what to do because I'm not like that. When I feel like it's appropriate to do something, I am also going to do it. But if it bugs you, go ahead and do it. And we've had to communicate like, I wouldn't say harshly, but we've had to communicate in like ways like that in order to figure out like, how are we going to get our lives like in a space where we can live with each other and coexist with each other. Yeah. Just conversations like that, bro. And it's kind of awkward conversations to have. Like, how do I tell my girl, like, do laundry on your own fucking time without sounding like a fucking asshole?
Yeah,
right?
That sounds like a difficult conversation.
Sounds like a fucking difficult conversation. Now I do it's a Tuesday. I'm supposed to be doing laundry today. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I've figured out ways to do it. Or other instances where it's like, hey, babe, like, she is going to handle all the cooking. I'm going to handle all the fucking dishes. We've had to communicate in ways like, she's like, I don't like washing dishes. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the best cook. Easy. Simple, very easy solution. Yeah. Now I just got to make sure that shit doesn't just like pile up.
All right, so we just talked about it a little bit off camera, but we were talking about how the people who know you are less likely to support you than the people who don't know you.
See, that topic is always, I'm always teetering on the fence when it comes to that one, because I've been in situations where like my friends have like come out to like all the shit that I do in the Bay. Like I used to put together shows for the most random artists, and like people would, my friends would come. One of those artists being Twee, one of my really good friends now, and she's obviously like just hit superstardom at this point. And my family too, like, who didn't necessarily, not that they didn't support what I was doing, but they just didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And so I remember it was during the, I did one interview with this big time Filipino artist. His name is Nico Pascual. He's basically the son of like one of these famous like Filipino actors. Oh. And so when I interviewed him, that was the first interview that my parents had ever seen me do on the internet. And then they were just like, okay, now I get what you're doing, like, since you've been in LA for like 5 years now. I'm like, thank you, I appreciate that. And then when I told you my mom is like extremely supportive of what I do, but like when the pandemic hit and when Twitch was like a thing, my mom was literally on every single stream that I would do. That's wild. And there was one stint where I did like 365 days straight of like DJ streaming. My mom was there every single time. So my mom basically became everyone's mom, like, within my community, right? And so it wasn't until that point my mom and my dad realized, like, oh, like, you actually make a career out of DJing, and that is really fucking cool. Now my parents are at a point to where just like, yeah, my son's a DJ. Yeah, my son's a producer. My son does this. My son does that. And it took a while, right? And not that I ever felt any animosity because maybe they didn't support what I was doing at the time, but they didn't know, right? They had no clue what I was doing. And you got to think about like your friends or the people who like you want to support you. More than likely, the people who are there every single time are like what? If we're talking about DJing, other DJs. Yeah. Other musicians, other people in music, right? So of course they're going to support you because they know what the fuck goes on with this industry, right? So for your friends or your family members who don't necessarily know what's going on, they don't know how to support you because A, there's not a blueprint for how to make this shit work, and B, they just don't know how to do it. They don't know if they should show up to your shows or if you even want them to show up to your shows or whatever. They don't know if buying a fucking overpriced drink is going to help you. Like, they don't know any of it. It's not, but they might just do it anyway, but they don't fucking know. And so, and on top of that too, you might be the person to complain about like, oh, people don't support you or whatnot. Did you look in the mirror and maybe think like, I have to readjust what I'm doing in order to figure out like, in order to like make this the best product possible? Bro, I was interviewing artists like so much, bro. Like hella artists from international waters to the West Coast, big names, small names, whatever. No one fucking gave a fuck, and I didn't give a fuck if anybody gave a fuck. I just kept on doing it, and I didn't care if people supported me or not. I just wanted to fucking do this shit because I loved it, man. Yeah. It didn't matter if I had 1 view or fucking 1 million views on like videos. I was going viral before I even knew what the fuck viral was, and I was like, oh, this is fucking tight. Yeah. And this is people who I don't fucking know, and that's all good. It's all good with me. And guess what? My friends probably don't even know about that shit, and it's all good because I do all this shit out of like love. I do all this shit out of passion, not because I need somebody to like show up and, like cheer behind my back. Now, of course, when it comes to like a club scenario, for example, or a party, you definitely need people to fucking show up, right? Yeah. You definitely do. But if you're like if you're an R&B party competing with this R&B party and this R&B party and this R&B party, like there's so many fucking R&B parties, bro. Like how the fuck are you going to compete with the next one, right? Yeah. You got to figure that shit out. Like, you really do. And if it's not with this, you might have to pivot to something else, because I think I had this in me, and I had to realize that so many other people had this in themselves. And this is the reason why sometimes shit just doesn't work, and why some people do stuff for a minute. So I feel like I've had to pivot so fucking much in order to make sure something worked. I was getting unhappy interviewing artists because it was the same convos over and over again. It was like, yeah, bro, so, like, your song kind of popped off and da-da-da. Yeah, bro, like, I was just in the studio. I made that shit, and, this shit just happened. All right. I literally refuse artists from, like, label rep, the biggest fucking label reps. I'd be like, no, I don't want to do this shit no more. I'm good off of this. Oh. I'm cool. And then when Jackie comes in the picture, she's like, I want to do something that has to do with both of our cultures. Oh, we could do this shit all fucking day because I actually love this. But guess what? The first podcast I had, it was cool. It was great. I wasn't feeling happy anymore. The second podcast I had pivoted. Oh, I'm fucking having the time of my life. This shit evolved into, like, different levels I never thought it would go to. And I just had to pivot. That's all it was. But it was also understanding as, like, a creative person that, like, okay, this was cool, but maybe it wasn't me enough. It wasn't enough of, like, me. It wasn't too much of my creative input into this. So why is it when I start to be more of myself, the more I start to be out there about, like, who I am and, like, what my history is and, like, all of that stuff, why does it start to work now? This was one thing that really made me love being Filipino. It was during the pandemic. Well, I was already interviewing a shit ton of Filipino artists, and I loved it. I loved it every single time I would interview a Filipino artist because it was so fucking relatable. I was like, I fucking get you. I fucking get it. Mm-hmm. And I'd interview, like, other Asian artists between, like, Rich Brian, Stephanie Poetry, all the biggest fucking Asian artists in the fucking world. I'd fucking interview them, and it was so good, bro. I loved it every single time. And then when Twitch happened, I noticed that a lot of my fan base or a lot of my crowd, whatever, was, like, Filipino. So I started cracking Filipino jokes. I started talking about, like, Filipino shit. My Filipino mom would be in the chat and just talk about all Filipino shit. Yeah. Oh my God, I'd never felt so loved about what the fuck I do in my life, because this is something that I didn't realize. Like, I just had to be myself in front of people in order to get the reception that I wanted. It's like being a fucking DJ, right? Like, yeah, you can watch a shit ton of, like, I saw Sush tweet this the other day, but he said he just saw a set where, like, this DJ went back to back on, like, nothing but Instagram transitions. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but, like, where are you? Where are you as the DJ in all of this situation? Just because you're copying what's cool on, like, Instagram, that doesn't mean anything over here, right? Yeah. And so you start to lose yourself in the midst of, like, everything else that is going on. My sole mission, at least for me, is to just be unapologetically myself, no matter what that means, right? Mm-hmm. You could even look on my fucking Instagram right now. Like, the biggest fucking videos I have are, like, videos about MySpace music. And that's such a niche thing, bro. Like, not everyone is from that fucking era. Not everyone knows that music. But guess what? Every time I post something about that, it's like my fucking phone just bursts into flames because that is me. I'm a fucking simp. I love lovey-dovey music. I know these records not because I'm currently looking for them right now, but because these have been on my iPod, my fucking iPod, since, like, the beginning of time when I first had an iPod. I've had these same files from LimeWire until now, and I still play them to this day. And, like, there's so many things that have, like, just solidified that all I have to do, all a person has to do in order to, I guess if you want to call it, like, you know, be successful and get that reception from, like, whether it be people you fuck with or people you don't know, is just be your fucking self, bro. It goes back to the alcohol shit and, like, you know, drinking around, like, an entire crowd and having girls behind you because that's what a DJ is supposed to look like, right? You're supposed to get drunk until 2, 3 a.m. and then do an afters after. Like, you're supposed to do all that shit. Well, no, like, I don't want to do that shit. That's not me. So I'm going to stand out from the rest of the crowd simply by just being my fucking self, bro. And it's not even purposeful anymore. It's just like, does this align with like any of the goals that I have in mind? No? All right, cool. I'm just going to fucking go home. Like, I'm chilling. I don't want to do this shit. I don't want to do shit that doesn't align with anything that I have going on. And it just makes life that much more easier, bro. Because like, 24 hours in a day, I wish was enough. I thought at one point I wish I had more time during the day. But I came to realize, like, if you just make decisions based off things that really matter in your fucking life, you have more than enough time in the day to do everything that you want to do.
Yeah, I've actually heard something like that from, Tim Ferriss is?
I don't.
He's like a podcaster, investor. He's done like some great shit, and he's just very overall relatable, and he just tries to teach people. But one of the things he said is one of the methods was that whatever decision you make, rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. But remove 7. So it's either 1 through 6, 8, 9, 10. And if it's 1 through 6, don't do it. Because who the fuck wants to do something it's just, they're like lukewarm about, And because you remove the 7, the passing average, now if you do anything that's 8, 9, or 10, you're probably really excited about it. Mm-hmm. So that's a good way to discern between like if it's something is worth it to you or if it aligns with you or it's something that you're just kind of about when you're
it's the same thing to where like, and this is how I've been able to just control my emotions like so much throughout my entire life, right? Again, with the exception of a certain spots, right? But for the most part, I've always thought this cliche thing, if it's not going to affect you 5 years from now, there's no point in even worrying about it at all. There's really no point because it might hurt in the moment. It might piss you off in the moment, but it's not going to be worth it 5 years. You're not even going to remember this shit, bro. Honestly, you're not going to remember this shit. Like, I'm not going to remember that something's going fucking wrong with my computer right now. Like, yeah. I'm not going to remember all the bad sets I had. I'm just going to remember that I'm motivated to get better every single time. I'm not gonna remember if I honestly don't remember like the last time somebody pissed me off because it's just that like minute to me. Yeah. I don't remember the last time I got like fucked over. I don't remember a lot of things actually because it's just it's subtle to me. It's just not significant to me anymore. But I can go in on like how to produce something on fucking MIDI. I know the last time I made like a really random ass like transition on the decks to make even like the people behind me be like, oh, like that was pretty fucking cool. I'm like, yeah, it kind of was, right? Like that was pretty fire, right? I remember the last like dope ass party that I fucking did and looking at everybody and like seeing somebody being like, yo, like you that, I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, thanks, bro. I appreciate you. Like, and I've learned to like latch on to like those good feelings like so much more than all the bad, bro, because the good feelings is what is going to matter 5 years from now. The good feelings is what is going to propel me for the next day and keep me motivated for the next day. And don't get me wrong, man, like I'm not here to be a motivational speaker or anything like that, but like, I do have my bad days. I do have my days where, I don't feel like I'm at my best, and I have to figure out how to maneuver through those days, whether it's not do jack shit or play Pokemon for fucking like 5 hours or just fucking be bored and just do some regular shit. I said this on our podcast before, but like one of the best days I've had of 2024, best weekends rather, me and Jackie were both off. We took Benny, our dog, to the park on like a Sunday. Afterwards, we drove to, you know what Resco is? Resco is an Asian Costco, bro. Okay. So you could buy fucking pounds of Korean barbecue meat and we have a fucking Korean barbecue grill at the crib. So, bro, we bought 2 pounders worth of fucking meat for like $50.
Sheesh.
Bro, it was a lot. And then we went to see her family afterwards, and then we went home, and I literally laid down, and I was like, wow, I really needed this day because it made me feel fucking normal. It took me away from all the normalities of the abnormal life that I live, the non-9 to 5 shit, the fucking working 12 hours a day or whatever the fuck. It took me away from all that and normalized me for a second. It stabilized me. You need that shit, bro. Yeah. You need that shit in order to propel yourself to the next level.
It's just like how you were saying it before. We could be busy 24/7 if we wanted to be, but is any of it really moving the needle? That's the question that you got to ask before making that decision, right? And weirdly enough, sometimes doing things that have nothing to do with the work is when it feels the most happy or fulfilling.
Bro, my favorite days. You play Pokemon Go?
I haven't in a long time.
Okay, let me get a little nerdy when it comes to Pokemon, right? There's this thing on Pokemon Go called Community Days. And if you know anything about Community Days, it is an opportunity to catch shiny Pokemon, which is basically a Pokemon, but a different color, which is a 1 in 4,096 chance to catch. Oh, shit. Every single time. You get a higher chance to catch these Pokemon on these Community Days. So as soon as it happens once a month, every Saturday on Pokemon Go, I'm just like, babe, guess what today is? She's like, what? It's fucking Community Day. She's like, okay, where are we going to go? We're going to go to the fucking park. I'm going to be fucking catching Pokemon at a park for like 3-4 fucking hours. That's what the fuck we're going to do today. Okay. And bro, that's my step away from all this shit.
Yeah. No, I feel you. Like everyone needs that.
He's laughing because he knows what the fuck I'm talking about.
Do you know? Yeah. No, it's wild because I feel like we want to not talk about those things. I'm glad you brought that up. You know, like I have things where I just fucking, like, I'll have my boys come over and then we'll fucking play video games and that's it, you know, like for 3 hours once a week.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's all I need to really decompress. And I totally forgot what that meant to me until we had weeks where we didn't do that, right? And I was like, damn, why do I feel a little bit off? And it was because I didn't have any off time. It was just like always something, on to the next, on to the next. But you don't understand that, like, or people don't understand that, like, we can't just keep on going forward like that. It's sometimes we need to slow down, reassess, and just like take our time with things and just enjoy like the regular everyday things. Like, why does everything have to be so grand? You know what I mean? It really doesn't.
Yeah, you know, there's days where, like, again, I could produce like 10 beats in one day and feel on top of the world, and the next day I'm just like, fuck, I don't have that same magic I just had yesterday. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And then I rack my brain about, like, well, what did I do with this? What did I do with that? I'll literally go back to old beats and just be like, well, how the fuck did I do this? And I forgot, like, for God's love, I can't fucking figure it out. So I remind myself, like, okay, step away, do some other regular shit that maybe doesn't even have to do with music, and just fucking live life, bro. And then I think where people get that misconstrued is that, like, you have to understand when you are doing, you have to do more than enough sometimes, right? In order to get to the next level. And I think that some people become a little bit more content once they've like achieved something. They're like, cool, I'm gonna rest for like 3 days. I don't think you should rest for 3 days. Maybe you could rest for a day and then, you know, like get back to it. Like, cause I'm a hustler, bro. Like, if I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, I feel this fucking urge just to like do something, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I think what happens is that most people like to do something, but they're not going to do it enough to the point to where they get, I like to work to a point to where, like, I'm tired, and because I know I'm tired, if I'm doing this right now and I'm doing my absolute best, even though it's not to my standard, I know by the time I recover and am back at 100%, my ceiling has just became a lot higher.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like pushing a fucking muscle.
Yeah, it's like working out.
It's literally like working out, bro. And so I work to that point, but I have to remind myself, like, this muscle is fucking tired, so go on and work on your legs now. go on and work on this, go on and work on that. And I have to remind myself, I keep myself around people who also remind me too, to also think in that way. Because, you know, I think the sucky part about all this, like, I wouldn't say about all of this, but like one sucky thing that could come out of all of this is loneliness. This like obsession that you have with like trying to be the best at like what you do. It does come with like lonely times, bro. Like I'm with my dog like 8 hours out of the fucking day. It's just me and him, and you know, phone call here or there or whatever. But for the most part, I'm like physically alone with my dog, right? And so I don't want it to get misconstrued to where like, you know, like you need to be obsessive and like fucking alone and like doing the shit by yourself, because like doing all these things that I do with other people make it that much more worth it. Like doing the podcast and the food fest with my girlfriend and her family, totally worth it, because we have so many more. We have the right opinions flying around, and we're able to like communicate on like different levels. And then as soon as our meetings are done, we get to bullshitting, right? With my homies who I run the rave with, yeah, like one of our homies made a funny comment saying like we're all just fucking coworkers at the end of the day, and I'm just like, fuck you, we're actually friends, yeah. Right? Like we can bullshit and have like that good time with each other, but also come down to the seriousness as business partners. And when it comes to like all the artists I work with, like Johnny Maxwell, like this is the one thing I love about working with my boy Johnny in particular when it comes to music, is that the first hour of our session, of our music session, is dedicated to just talking to each other about what is going on with our lives. You know, I share things with him that like most people don't know. He shares things with me that most, if not all people don't know. And I'm just like, wow, like, you know, if I was in any other environment, I would feel like we just get to work right away, which I do with other artists and whatnot. But when it comes to like working with him, it's like, wow, like talking to each other and getting to know each other on an even more personal level is part of this job. And it's not even like forced upon. It's just because we love each other's company and we love talking to each other. And then guess what comes out of that? We make fucking bangers because we're honest with each other.
Yeah.
We're able to write lyrics that have to do with our fucking feelings and what we're going through. And we understand that, like, oh, bro, yeah, that line's fire. Oh, yeah, bro, let's go with this line. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Like, it builds for a, like, better situation all around. So, like, I don't like it when people talk about you need to cut off all distractions and whatnot. Like, bro, like, I know who's in my circle, and I know who's going to uplift me. Hence and therefore, building an actual relationship with them is only going to make the situation rise above.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And it goes back to that human touch, right? Human connection.
Yeah.
And, you know, just like how you were saying with your friend, the one that was cutting up the clips, how it became transactional. Mm-hmm. You no longer want transactional relationships.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense. I actually have a friend of mine who I manage. He is a rapper, but also another friend that we work with, he's a producer. And their relationship started with my buddy who produces just sending him tracks, right? And it was good. But I always felt like there was a disconnect. And I told him, I was like, yo, you guys need to get into the studio and just kick it, dude. Like, you guys are friends, so why are you guys only talking to each other when you guys send each other beats now?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of weird. It like became transactional. And now that they get in the studio, every Monday I hear it like, well, we needed this. Like, yeah, it's so much better. Like the creativity just flows, you know, it feels like not forced. Because now while he's producing a beat, he could be like, oh, I like this, or I didn't like this, you know, and while he's writing, like we can actually hear what he's like thinking about.
Yeah.
Like in real time.
Yeah.
You know, and that real connection is what people need. I feel like it's just weird because I get it. People have their motivations for things, right? But they want to cut to the chase too much. Where it's like, yeah, I could send you the beat and you get it done. I don't have to drive to you. But what did you say earlier when you got on this podcast? Like, I drove down here from LA, but it's worth it to me, right? And there's a reason, because that real connection in person. Just like how I said, I don't like doing this shit over Zoom.
I don't either.
You know what I mean? Like, I like it in person, right? It's worth it to me to come to the office. And I think we are getting to a point where people are so disconnected because, I see friends who now work from home because of the pandemic, right? Work from home is now pretty common. To where I'm like, damn, I've started to notice some of these people become antisocial because they don't have like working relationships, like they don't talk to anyone. They're just in their room. Maybe they hop on Zoom and then they feel like they don't even know how to socialize when they go out. It's weird. So I watched this podcast, this doctor, he's a psychiatrist, his name is Dr. K, Healthy Gamer on YouTube. And he talked about how a lot of people, which a theory that I had during this pandemic was that a lot of my friends were like, oh, it turns out I'm an introvert, even though they were very extroverted prior. And I was like, oh, why is this happening? I don't think you're an introvert, right? Like they're just finding their introverted self through this pandemic because they're forced to lock down. But in the podcast I was listening to, he was talking about how a lot of people started self-diagnosing themselves as
an introvert.
And he was like, you know what? I'm starting to realize that a lot of people are not introverts. They're extroverts with social anxiety because they've been so kept to themselves that now when you go out and you're supposed to process information in conversations, you don't know how to do it because it's been so long. And that uses a lot of your energy. And then you feel tired and you feel like, oh, I need to recharge by, stepping away, which is interesting because in the very end of it, right, is all of us need connections. Introverted, extrovert, doesn't matter. We all need real, authentic connections. Let me be correct about that. Real, authentic connections, right? Because, inauthentic connections are draining, dude. You know what I mean? Like going back to your show and how you interviewed a lot of people, even though that is your passion, that wasn't what you wanted to talk about. And don't get me wrong, like people go through those things, right? To really understand where they stand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you go through those times where you're like, fuck, this is, and maybe you did like it at one point, but as human beings, we change, we adapt. What's purposeful to you at one point in your life might not be later on, and that's okay.
You know what it is that I think one of my homies actually put it to me the best way and told me about myself in ways that I didn't even think about myself. But like, I've come to realize that I'm the type of person who enjoys challenge. And so when it came to my past endeavors, I just wasn't feeling challenged anymore, bro. I felt like it was too easy, and I felt like if this is how it's going to be, because it's happened more like 9 times out of 10, I don't really want to do it because it's not fucking challenging anymore.
Yeah.
Like, not that it doesn't help. Well, not that it doesn't like help my career on like social media or whatever, but because it's not challenging me as a human being. And that's what I constantly am like learning or constantly like yearning for. So like shit, my homie who I was just talking about, he's one of my homies who like, kind of gave me like some of my first runs as a DJ. I went to Cal State LA and there was a shit ton of DJs like at that school. And I learned from maybe like 2 or 3, right? And he had asked me like, hey, so what are you up to? Because I hadn't seen him in a bit. I just saw him like a couple weeks ago. And I was like, yeah, I'm just like producing full time now. I'm taking a lot less gigs and, I'm just taking the gigs that like will A, like get me some fucking bread in my pocket, but B, like I'm not going to take like just random gigs or whatever. And if I do, it's really just for a homie and like, it's out of love. It's whatever. And then he was like, oh, so like, how come you're taking like a lot less gigs? And I'm like, it's just kind of a little bit too easy now because I was DJing like 3-4 nights out of the week, and I know exactly how people are going to react when I play this or do that. And I know it's fire because it happens every single time, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Humbly.
Yeah,
but like, like I just know that like, it's a little bit too even weddings have become like fucking easy for me. I'm just like, I know what to do. And so for me, he was like, oh, so you don't feel challenged. That's the thing. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't feel challenged. Or I do feel challenged right now is trying to understand like how to produce and be the best version of me as a producer, because like I have to differentiate my sound from everybody else. I gotta figure out like who I can work with and who wants to work with me just to make the best fucking product possible. And honestly, I'm doing this shit in my 30s. I'm starting producing in my 30s. That's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, it is.
You know, like I know a bunch of 30-year-olds who don't listen to the music that's out right now. I still do because I love music that fucking much. So I always want to be around new music and new artists and like new whatever. No Diddy. And
Yeah.
so, you know,
That's
like
old music.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Not that shit.
Yeah.
But you know, I always want to be around that shit because I just love it so much, bro. But yeah, that's it's just a challenge at the end of the day, and I always look forward to challenging myself in different ways.
This is a very specific question to you because you mentioned you love challenges. In which way does your relationship challenge you?
Okay, so when I moved to LA for the first time in 2014, I had basically lived alone for the most part. So what happens when you live alone and in your own world, right? You start to think like basically everything I do is right. Like I've been able to fucking survive, so what the fuck is somebody else going to teach me about myself that I don't already know how to do? I know how to cook, I know how to clean, I know how to do all this shit. I know the last point in which like something starts to become a little bit like faulty or iffy. I know all of this shit, right? It's like I know. Then when somebody else comes in, you come to realize maybe you don't know everything, dude. Like, you really don't know everything, because if you want to be with somebody that is going to obviously introduce a different part of a lifestyle, they're going to introduce their lifestyle, therefore different ways of you also living. That's a challenge in itself to try to figure out, like, okay, well, A, is this relationship worth it? That's the first question always, right?
Yeah.
But B, if this relationship is worth it, what are things about myself that I am going to need to, people say change, but what are things about myself that I'm going to need to improve, right? I'm not gonna lie, bro. When I was living by myself, I was doing laundry once a month.
Oh,
Bro, once a fucking month.
that's wild. You got a lot of clothes then.
Shit, I have enough. Bro, my whole motto, I mean, still to this day, bro, I have enough underwear to survive me a month and some change every fucking day.
wild.
I have enough fucking underwear to do that, bro.
That's a lot of fucking
That's a lot of fucking, that's a lot of fucking underwear, bro. Right? That's a lot of fucking underwear. But now, like, you know, I've had to like declutter. I've had to like get rid of like, literally, I've had to get rid of like old shirts because I'm just like, I don't wear this shit no more. So what the fuck is the point of it anymore? It doesn't spark joy or whatever the fuck Marie Kondo says, right? It doesn't do any of that for me. Okay, cool. Well, now that I'm living with my girl, guess what? Laundry doubles up every fucking week. Okay, so now instead of waiting a fucking month to do double the fucking laundry, I'm gonna just do it on a weekly basis because that's just more efficient and shit is cleaner that way. You know, like that's making that's improving. That's literally going from like doing your laundry once a month to once a week. That's not a change, that's improvement. So literally take that idea with like hella other things about like our relationship, which I can't even like begin to think of right now. But, you know, I think that when you find the right person and, you know, change or improvements are being implemented, like go with the flow. Just do it.
I know it seems like since the very beginning we talked about change and improvement, right? It seemed like you kind of had to change the way you were thinking about it initially because you lived on your own. No one could tell you shit.
Yeah.
But now you guys have integrated your life and work, personal. Was there anything that she had to do to change? Because culturally you guys are different. So at what point did you decide like, hey, this is something that I need on my part to improve your life with?
I think one thing was definitely because again, I'm an extremely independent person, so I'm fine with being alone. I could be alone all fucking day, and I will have the time of my fucking life. No Diddy. But
we're giving Diddy way too much talk in this episode, right?
it's just because it happened recently.
Yeah, relevant.
But so, for her, she had to really realize, like, I enjoy my fucking alone time. Like, I like being by myself, like, hours on during the day. So instead of, like, bombarding me with, like, information about, like, a video or whatever, I've literally had to tell her, like, hey, this is my work time. So I honestly don't really want to be disturbed because it's going to get me out of, like, my fucking groove. It's going to get me out of my funk. And she's had to learn to be okay with that. She's had to learn to be okay with, like, being in separate rooms because she's lived with her family her entire life. She's used to having people around and conversations happening all the fucking time. Me, even if you go to, like, before the pandemic, right? Like, me and my family, we'd always be doing our own separate thing at the same time. Now we're closer than ever. So, and especially since I go back, like, not as often, like, we have a different relationship now. Like, we actually, like, we talk hella and we're always together. Yeah. But that's just, like, one adjustment, bro. Like, she's had to figure out, like, okay, even with the way, like, I talk sometimes, like, it could come off, like, very preachy or, like, maybe even asshole-ish sometimes. But I'm not coming from there. I'm just very passionate about, like, what the fuck I'm saying. I'm not coming from, like, a place of, like, disgust or, like, looking down on you or anything like that. Like, it's really just coming from a good place. So it's her also figuring that out about me, that even though someone else might want to talk to you that way, like, I'm not talking to you in that way. This is just how I am.
Was that one of the biggest breakthroughs for your relationship? Because it sounds like you stated a couple times, you're independent. Sounds like she's a little bit more dependent.
No, she's independent in herself as well. But, I think that when you're in a new situation where you've, like, lived at home your entire life, and then in, like, your 20-somethings, the first place you move to outside of your immediate home is, like, with your boyfriend. Mm-hmm. There, I could see, like, a little bit of dependency because you're not familiar with, like, any of that, like, from the jump. Yeah. Now it's just like, cool, she's in the fucking room while she's getting ready. She's fucking watching Grey's Anatomy or whatever. I'm over here producing in the fucking morning. We say our highs, we say our goodbyes, and then by the time, like, she gets back home, and that's another thing that I'll stress, by the time she gets back home, I'm cutting off everything else that I'm fucking doing because that's my time with her now too. Right? So, like, the same way where I cut off, like, I don't start looking at social media till, like, 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock, or whatever the fuck. By the time she gets back home, all right, cool. Now this is our time to hang out because I don't want to fucking touch producing. I don't want to fucking touch DJing. I don't want to touch any of the other businesses that I have because she deserves that because I am her boyfriend. And that is a role that I willingly put on myself. So I am going to be that boyfriend for that duration of time. I mean, boyfriend all day, but especially, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
give her that
mode,
boyfriend mode, like, during that time.
Okay, so, you have a podcast, Mexipino, right? Cultures are different, but this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like Filipinos and Mexican are probably the closest as far as being different.
Yeah.
So culturally, what did you have to learn about the Mexican culture that was actually different? And which ways did you align that surprised you?
Surprisingly, we came to realize, like, our families are not that different at a lot of the differences that come between our families, or that are between our families, rather, our individual families, are just how we go about certain things, right? So, like, culturally, I mean, yeah, you could say the language is different, but it's also the same at the same time, Spanish and Tagalog. Yeah. But our family parties are the same. They're fucking massive. There's always hella fucking people, right? And then when it comes to, like, cousin or family member dynamics, it's like, okay, well, I don't like this cousin. Okay, cool. Well, I don't like this auntie. All right, cool. I don't like them. I don't like them. I don't like them. Oh, I love them. Okay, cool. I can share this information with them. Like, it's all basically the fucking same. There's a lot of, like, similarities. Yeah. A lot of the differences really just come with, like, how our families go about things. Like being in the Bay, like a very small example is like it's always cold there, so we party inside. In LA, it's always hot, so they always party outside. I don't fucking swim, so I've also never had a fucking pool in the Bay Area because it's fucking cold. Yeah. You know, her uncles have a fucking pool, so they want to fucking do is like swim in the summertime, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. And that's like surface level shit.
Yeah.
But like, you know, when it comes to how our families operate, my family is a lot more fucking loud and vocal to each other when it comes to problems, right? I mentioned this earlier. When it comes to her family, it's like hella chismosa shit, for example. Like everyone's just talking amongst each other like, oh, they did this, they did that, da da da. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, you know, like that is just the biggest difference that I see, which honestly isn't really different at all. Like Filipinos and Mexicans, like we're hella fucking the same, bro. We're hella the same. Yeah. Like we're literally, I know some people may get booty tickled about this, but we're literally like the Mexicans of Asia. Yeah. Which is cool. Like I always thought it was like a weird thing to say, like growing up, but like I've come to realize, no, that really is what it is. Yeah. Conquered by the same fucking people. So what the fuck do you expect?
True. I mean, there is a underlying commonality, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because I've thought that I didn't want to say it straight up like that, but
yeah.
You know, you confirmed it for me. Because
he's like, if Nico said it, then it's cool.
Yeah. You know, I guys agree with you in that because I feel like also from talking to all my Filipino friends and my Mexican friends is like both cultures are very unbothered by shit. I don't know why that is,
bro.
But
we are some of the both Mexicans and Filipinos. We are some of the hardest fucking workers on this fucking planet, right? You go to any fucking boiling crab, bro. You go to any boiling crab, bro. They're all Mexican chefs. They're all Mexicans in the fucking back, bro, just fucking cooking. And I'm just like, oh, well, if Mexicans are making boiling crab, technically this is Mexican food. That's all I'm saying, right? But, I mean, even look at Filipinos, too. The most nurses that ever come out of the world are from the fucking Philippines, dude. They're from the Philippines.
They say the biggest export out of the Philippines are the nurses.
Are nurses, bro. Like, and so, again, like, Jackie's independent. She can get her shit whenever she want to, like, get her shit. That's fine. I'm going to get my shit whenever I want to get my shit. But we are also, like, the cultures that get looked down upon when it comes to, you know, the United States, at least, right? Like Filipinos are rarely, if never, mentioned, and Mexicans have obviously gone through all this shit. It was going to get a little bit political, but have obviously gone through this shit with Trump in office, before Trump, and even fucking now, right? So Mexicans and Filipinos, we never get the fucking credit we deserve. Oh, but then everybody, like, in between the fine lines, when it doesn't come to like a bigger scale, you know how many fucking times I've been told, oh, Filipinos are the best fucking dancers, they're the best fucking DJs, and I'm just like, I fucking know this. I know. Oh, Filipinos are the best singers. Oh yeah, because the fucking lead singer of Journey, after the lead guy like took off, the main guy now is Filipino. Yeah, I fucking know this. Like, it's good. Guap Dad, her is Filipino. She won a fucking Grammy. But not too many people want to talk about she's Filipino, bro. Like,
that's right.
So that's all I'm saying, man. Like,
do you feel like that's why you're so passionate about your Mexipino podcast? Because you're divulging these two things where the commonality is you guys don't get enough representation or at least acknowledgement.
Yeah, right? Bro, 1,000%, man. Like, you know, I mean, I say this a lot, but back when I was in the Bay Area, like, I didn't want to be like Filipino because I was around it so much, bro. Like, most of my homies back home are Filipino. I'm in San Francisco, and then neighboring that is Daly City. Like, Daly City is filled with nothing but Filipinos. My best friend is Filipino. So, like, it was just Filipino fucking overload. It was like fucking ube just fucking getting gouged in my fucking mouth every fucking day, bro. Yeah. It was so annoying to be Filipino at that point of my life. Then when I moved to LA, I remember this. One of the first things I needed in LA was a fucking barber. And the first barber I go to, no diss to this guy, but this guy was Mexican, and he cut my hair like a fucking cholo, bro. And now I'm over here like, nah, bro, this ain't it. But then I didn't know a fucking barber here. So I just kept going to him. Then when I find a Filipino barber, I was like, oh, thank God you know how to cut my fucking hair. And that's great. That's no diss.
Yeah.
It's just not the style that I wanted for myself, right? And so when I moved here, I was like, man, like, why are there there's no Filipino communities out here, at least that I know of, back in like 2014. And I went to fucking Cal State LA.
Yeah.
You want to know how many Filipinos go to fucking Cal State LA? Not a fucking lot. It was a lot of fucking Mexicans. And then one day, Nudes goes there to fucking perform, Kehlani's DJ. And guess what? I saw a slew of Filipinos there where I was just like, where the fuck were you guys?
Where were they?
I don't fucking know, in the fucking like accounting section or something. I don't fucking know where the fuck they were, bro. But then they just showed up. And so it was my mission, like, by the time I got out of college, and I met my good friend, rest in peace, her name is Roslyn. But she, we had this mission of like, hey, like, let's make being Filipino cool, right? And that was always my thing. Like, how do I make being Filipino cool? All I knew at the time was to like interview fucking artists and talk to every Filipino artist I knew. And that was super rewarding for me. And I always told myself like, man, it would be so dope to just have like a platform where we highlight nothing but like Filipino, people and whatnot. Jackie being Mexican, she felt like she wanted to do that for Mexicans. And I'm like, cool, like this makes sense. Let's highlight Mexicans and Filipinos because we're the fucking same anyway.
Yeah.
So
what was the first moment where you felt proud to be Filipino? Because I feel like this is a common thing no matter what ethnicity you are. I'm Vietnamese, right?
Yeah.
It took me a while. I grew up thinking Vietnamese language is hella harsh, sometimes abrasive. You know what I mean? Maybe because it was my mom and dad yelling at me when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's the way I connected. It was like through this like older couple who would yell at me. So, I don't think I was proud. For me, I wasn't proud of my ethnicity until I heard other people talk about it. Until I heard other people say like, man, Vietnamese food is like the best. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I love pho. I was like, holy shit, this Mexican dude just told me he loves pho.
I love pho, bro.
Yeah, it's wild.
I choose pho over ramen all day.
Damn.
All the time.
Get some fighting words in the comments,
man.
bro.
Ramen's cool, but then the thing, super sidebar, but then ramen, they be putting too much shit. I be telling them like, dude, I don't want the fucking egg. So take like $1 or $2 off of my shit because I don't want that shit, bro. I don't want all this extra shit you're putting in ramen. I literally just want good ass fucking soup.
All right, so what I say about pho versus ramen, right? This is, again, everyone's taste a little different. The only thing I could really say that I feel is universal between pho and ramen that most people will agree with me is that pho you can eat way more often than ramen.
Yeah.
If I eat ramen once a week, I'm good for like a week or two.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Like
yes.
I can't even do it once a week, to be honest. It's like a little bit too heavy. It's just not refreshing enough for me. Like pho brings me back to life. You know what I mean? Ramen puts me to sleep.
Yes, exactly.
That's how I feel. But anyways, going back to
Yes.
being proud of your heritage, what was the first moment that you felt that? Like you're like, damn, I really love this about Filipinos.
It's funny because like even though I like champion like being Filipino so much, I think it was this moment where I was championing just Asians in general.
I feel like that's very common.
But again, humbly, I want to say we did some really dope fucking shit, right? During the Twitch era of DJing, I was getting the moment where I got heartbroken during that Twitch era during the pandemic was when a old Filipino lady got attacked in New York City. I forgot how old she was, but I literally remember saying to myself like, bro, like that literally could have been my grandma. That could have been my grandpa. That could have been like any one of their siblings. And, I told the homies, I was like, man, like we got to do something. Like, cause this shit like really isn't cool. Again, Filipinos or Asians in general just being just downplayed. Like we're fucking nothing, bro. It's ridiculous. And so something that we did, we put together, actually, These are two instances. This instance that I'm talking about right now with Stop AAPI Hate was, I think we raised like $10,000 or something like that, like nice. On Twitch. And, you know, I think what made me proud about that moment was that, like, we got me and my boy DJ Kizza, like, we got a lot of dope DJs on Twitch to just come together of so many different ethnicities, bro. We had Cam Girl, who's Korean. We had Austin Mills, who's black. We had DJ Leslie, who's Latina. And we had Icy Ice on there, I believe. We had so many of the dopest DJs on Twitch just get together and do like a raid train is what they called it at the time. Oh, yeah. Where we just constantly raided each other just to, like, you know, show support, and people get entertained and people just donate their money. We raised like 10 grand doing that. Oh. But now I remember the most epic moment of me ever feeling like I'm super proud to be Filipino was also during the pandemic, to where the Philippines got hit with a massive typhoon. Yeah. Like, you know, people were literally dying. People were losing their houses. And I still have so much family back in the Philippines. Fortunately, they were not hit with this typhoon. But I said to myself, like, man, like, they already have, like, nothing there, right? And so to see an entire country that I am related to just get hit with this massive typhoon, like, we have to fucking do something. Again, it was me, my boy DJ Kizza, and my boy Ryan. We got together and we put together this thing called Sorry Not Sorry, which was also a raid train. So Sari Sari, S-A-R-I, that kind of just means like it's stupid, it's crazy, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So when we put it together like S-A-R-I, not S-A-R-I, it's like we're crazy, but we're not crazy, because we put together literally nothing but Filipino DJs on a 2 or 3 day like constant like raid train. It literally lasted like 48 hours or 36 hours, however long, like, you know, we had it for. I believe it was like 3 days. And then during that time, like, again, we had the biggest DJs, like one of them being like DJ Franzen over in Vegas. I know we had DJ E-Rock. We had Icy Ice, DJ Beastang, and just hella fucking Filipino DJs, bro. We had DJs from the UK. We had DJs from the Philippines. We had DJs like all over North America. DJs from Canada just all get together. And from that weekend, from the 3 days, it was 3 days, we raised $30,000 for that Philippines typhoon relief, bro. And, you know, at that moment, I felt super proud, not because of because of the money we raised for, and the money went to ABC Foundation, who was then able to help out, you know, those people who were affected in the Philippines. That was my proudest moment, because a couple things happened. A, we were able to directly raise funds that would help people who were affected by the typhoon. And B, we brought together a community of Filipinos that I didn't even realize were across the world, bro. Like, I already thought there weren't a lot of like Filipino DJs in California, but at that moment I knew there was. And then even more so, I didn't realize how many more Filipino DJs were across the world. And then on top of that, just Filipino people across the world. And then on top of that, people who supported what was going on, who weren't even Filipino, bro. That alone was, I mean, honestly, it's hard to top that, really, in my books, right? I didn't touch any of the money. Me, Kizza, or Ryan, we didn't touch any of the fucking money. All of that money went directly to ABS-CBN Foundation. I'm sorry. ABS-CBN Foundation, and, you know, just helped out.
Well, that's dope, dude. Wow, good shit.
Yeah,
You
man.
did 2 times? That's wild.
One specifically for Filipino, and then the second time for Stop AAPI Hate.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel like, uh, when I was interviewing artists, I know for a fact, with the exception of Dumbfounded, I was the only person like interviewing like Asian artists because I knew how important it was not only to me but for the culture.
Yeah.
And you know, I always just I've prided myself in being Filipino and also being Asian. And yes, Pacific Islander sometimes I'll switch around and whatnot. But you know, it's just important to feel represented because at least for me, I know some people have had different situations. Like I did not feel represented growing up. One of my biggest like icons ever was Mike Shinoda, right? Like Mike Shinoda was the only Asian guy rapping on a fucking rock band.
Yeah.
Linkin Park, the GOATs.
Yep.
And so for me, that was like the coolest shit for me to grow up to. And I was like, why is he the only one though? So I never felt, growing up for me, I never felt like that representation was there. Therefore, it was harder for me to like do everything that I'm doing now because I didn't have like any fucking blueprint to follow. So I knew at some point, I couldn't tell you when, but I wanted to make it easier for the next Filipino or Asian person to do whatever it is they want to fucking do. And if it falls in line with what the fuck I'm doing, then I'm happy. I'm super happy about that.
Thank you. Holy shit.
Yeah, man.
That's, damn, I don't even know what to say about that answer. I had a feeling the entire way through the whole podcast that that's the kind of person that you were, but you summed up in this last couple of sentences that really your purpose, you know, referred back to like passion and purpose, like that's it, really. And it's funny because it sounds like it all happened within the last like 4 years.
You know, it's crazy because I think this even goes back to what you were talking about, to where like people don't support you and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I feel like people, as a creative person, as someone who is trying to own a business or, you know, whatever, I think the issue is that you don't support yourself enough for other people to believe they should support you. Because, you know, you could think that you're going to blow up on year 1. You could think you're going to blow up on year 2. You think everything's going to work by year 5. You think everything's going to work by year 9. I moved to LA in 2014, so this is my 10th year. So if we discount, I started DJing February 2017. It's been 7 years. I still don't feel like I'm like where I want to be, which is a good and a bad thing. But truthfully, like things didn't start working out for me until 2020, but that's because I really started to put myself out there. But that's when things started to like make a shift, not when things started like, oh yeah, this is it. Yeah. This is exactly what I want, because I'm still not there yet, which is cool, and I'm happy with that, and it's fine. Because I know me starting DJing in 2017, so I was 24 at the time. You could say I started late, but I say I started right on time because like I had that much more of like a fire in me. You could say like I had this one lingering thing when like the pandemic happened because everyone started Twitch in March. I didn't start Twitch till August. And then I ended up becoming like a partner on Twitch just out of like sheer brute force. I'm like, no, like this shit, I'm going to make this shit fucking happen. And, you know, I think looking at it in retrospect, it's something extremely small compared to like everything that I'm doing now. But at that time, and I remember telling like everybody like this badge signifies like that you can do anything that you fucking put your mind to. If you have a fucking goal in mind, you can go ahead and achieve that as long as you keep on working at it and you have a plan to make sure it happens. I wasn't just fucking streaming out of the fucking blue every day. I knew to make a fucking schedule, start at 10. Actually, I knew to make a schedule to go from 10 to 1 every fucking day because that was when my highest, crowd was at.
Yeah.
I knew to start 10 to 15 minutes earlier to just get people in and possibly get a raid from somebody else to get even more people in by the time 10 o'clock hits because I studied that everybody would end at the top of the hour. I fucking knew these things because I actually studied it. And so when it comes to everything else I do, like starting producing at 30 years old, okay, I know it's not going to happen on fucking year one where I make a fucking sold out hit. Like we're doing a fucking tour like every fucking where. I know that's not going to fucking happen. If it does, cool, because I have a better fucking brain to understand how to maneuver that shit now because of all the other shit I do, but I'm realistic. I know to be patient, and I'm patient because like I love what I'm fucking doing, so it's well worth the wait. Like one thing I do want to get off is that like this idea of like starting something fucking late, bro. Like starting something, whether you feel like you're starting something at like 31, 35 or whatever the fuck, like all of that shit is complete bullshit, dude. It is complete bullshit. You know how many fucking videos you could see on my algorithm about people popping off at like 36, 41, 50 something? And what really like, this was not even any information that I got from anybody else, but like literally I'd see people like Morgan Freeman, right? When was the last time you saw a fucking movie of Morgan Freeman young? Never, yeah. Right? You've never seen Morgan Freeman young in a fucking movie. So guess what? His big break happened when he was fucking older, but he was putting in the fucking groundwork before that. No, Nico, it's acting. It's a little bit different. Yeah, it's a little bit different, but do you have to fucking be like the youngest dude to be fucking producing? Do you have to be the youngest dude to own a fucking company that like throws parties? Do you have to? No, you don't fucking have to, because if you know what the fuck you're doing by the time you're 40 or 50 or whatever, age is not gonna fucking matter. What matters the most is that you start today and you get at it today and you keep on going at it tomorrow, the day after, the week after, the month after. Because I'll tell you this that I got from social media, whether this is true or fucking not, I deem it to be true. But if you dedicate 15 fucking minutes to your day, you will have accomplished, what was it? 95% more than the regular person trying to accomplish that thing. I'm a full believer of putting in 10,000 hours into your fucking craft, right? Now, when it comes to the old head DJs, for example, a lot of them complain about, oh, we're not getting the fucking gigs, we're not fucking, all this social media marketing and all that shit. Well, bro, that's part of the fucking game. And that's part of keeping you on your fucking toes and going with the fucking time. Because when I'm fucking 40 or 50 and all this shit right now doesn't fucking matter, there's going to be something new. And guess what? I'm going to be fucking on it because that's just how the fucking game moves. That's 10,000 plus hours into that shit, bro. Twitch literally told me that I put in like over 1,000 hours of fucking DJing. And I felt like I was DJing for a minute on there, right? And to know I just hit 1,000 hours on that, oh, bro, I realized quickly how much I love this shit and how much more I want to do just to hit that 10,000 hour mark. Yeah. Because the thing is, you don't have a fucking bar over here to tell you that you've put in this many hours into your craft, and no one's gonna fucking cheer you on and tell you like, yeah, Nico, you go on hour 3,765. Like, no one's gonna fucking tell you that. You just have to keep on going and pretend like none of this shit even happened. You see the progress, bro. Yeah. You see the fucking progress, man. And so, like, Sorry, this is the last thing I want to get off about this shit.
Good,
like, bro, like I fucking hate complainers, bro.
Yeah.
I hate it when people say like shit isn't working out. Like, well, yeah, shit wasn't working out for me either, but I just kept on fucking going and I figured shit out. And when I figured out that shit wasn't working anymore, I fucking pivoted and made it something new, and then it started to work. I said earlier, we got a cease and desist from fucking Pokemon or from Nintendo, right?
That's wild.
Yeah, it's fucking wild. We got a fucking cease and desist. So guess what? We fucking pivoted and then it became better. That's all this shit is. Because we could have stopped and been like, all right, guys, like, good 10-city run. But no, we fucking made it different and we made it better.
No, it's funny because you were saying how you didn't want to come off like a motivational speaker, but you're pretty motivationally speaking right now. You know what I mean? So
I'm passionate.
I'm passionate.
You know what I mean?
I appreciate it because I do see that a lot, and you know, a lot of people do need to hear it. Myself, even this podcast, the other things that I'm doing. There are a lot of times where it's like, yeah, it's not like, yeah, maybe we have some hours online that we could measure through analytics, but dude, very much like this, like I'm spending time outside of this, like learning and figuring out how to improve and be better, you know?
Well, guess what, bro? You started this podcast with like 0 people fucking listening, right? Maybe even your homies listening at first, right? And then next thing you know, like me getting, me just knowing everybody that I know. Okay, cool. Like, oh, like Monica did a podcast? That's rare. I'd never seen Monica on a fucking podcast. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Monica's talking about some relationship shit. That's fire. That's cool. Couple months later, I think you did one with like Lori Lovesick, and I was like, oh, Lori's on this podcast too? Like, okay, that's cool. Like, I get to see Lori talk about just like, random shit. It might just be like the Instagram clip or whatever, but I saw it. And then next thing you know, like I think I just saw like your clip talking, I believe, about like your dad.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I think this is like my sign enough to just like, get on this podcast, because I'm like, this is fucking cool. Like, there's actually some dope shit that gets talked about on here. So like, I'm more than happy to like be on this shit, bro. Like, but you know what I mean? Like, it was more, you did more than like the extra person. Like, I don't know who the fuck cut your clips. You obviously do the fucking hosting. Like, this is 3 hours out of your fucking day. That's 3 more hours into that fucking bar of like 10,000 hours that you're putting in. And bro, like, honestly, like, I see the work. So it's like, okay, like, it just made sense. For the record, I reached out to him. He didn't reach out to me. I was like, I want to be on this shit. So,
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. I didn't expect you to say that, really. I mean, I just, funny enough, when you talked about being on the podcast, I had just thought about you because I saw a clip of yours about your podcast. And, I've seen your stuff like throughout the years and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I wonder if he would hop on the podcast. And I think I looked at one of the comments from that clip, and there you were. And I was like, what the fuck? What?
It just happens,
fucking
bro.
Timing. The algorithm just knows. I mean, and to me, what that speaks volumes about is just put out the work. You never know who's going to reach out, who you're going to connect with. Because to me, I never know. Like, I have, just like you, 0 expectations. I do this shit because I know I like it. I continue to do it, whether people watch it, 0 views, 10 views, 100,000 views, cool. I'm going to keep on going because I love doing it. Because my purpose is, like how you were saying, bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. To me, I'm doing this because I feel like there's some kid out there or someone who, me, my age or a little bit younger, who's going through some shit, who feels like they're alone.
Or who's probably taking a shit or like cooking and want to listen to a podcast. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly. And at the very least, like if we're able to make someone's day better, sick, awesome. I'm happy we did it. But I think we're actually here to change some things. Like realistically with your podcast, with what we're doing here, like we're trying to have a conversation that's not really being had out there, and I think it makes, it made me feel uncomfortable just starting it because it's like putting my shit out there, right? Like, what am I going to talk about? Am I good enough? But the idea that someone could get some value out of this makes it all worth it. Every single episode, every time,
Amen.
So, yeah, I'm glad to have you on here, man. I appreciate your time. And
happy to be here, man.
All right, I just want to say a special thank you to our guest, Nico. Appreciate you coming on and sharing everything. And dude, just a extra boost of motivation coming from your speech today, man.
Man, I feel like going back home and just fucking getting back in my flow state of producing now, man. Dude, I think you got me moving now.
Yeah, we gotta go get it, bro. But let the audience know where they can find you.
Yeah, man. Nico Blitz, that's at NICO, aka Blitz. I have a website, .com, Instagram, TikTok, literally every other social media site. And make sure you stream all my music on Spotify, Apple Music, and all that. And then Mexipino Podcast, that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. You could spell it exactly how it sounds, Mexipino Podcast.
Cool. And I just want to say a special thank you to our audience for watching it all the way through. This is one of our longer episodes for sure, but definitely worth the watch. And remember, live fast, eat ass.